Chapter 520. The Eighth Sword Strike, Comprehend. On the mountain peak, countless gazes turned to that unfamiliar young man. The radiance radiating from this young man seemed to have stolen away Li Hanyo's radiance. Li Hanyu comprehending the ninth sword strike was already considered not bad. However, the first time this young man comprehended the eighth sword strike, he broke the record of the first 7 sword strikes. And now, he even comprehended the eighth sword strike in such a short period of time. How inconceivable! Yi Lingshuang's beautiful eyes flickered. Earlier, she said that the eighth sword strike wouldn't be so easy to comprehend. After which, Qin Wendian actually comprehended it, causing her to be dumbfounded. She cursed in a low voice, comprehending swords has nothing to do with one's cultivation base. I didn't expect this lecherous fellow to have such capabilities, to actually be able to comprehend the eighth sword strike in such a short period of time. Senior, could it be that you secretly told him the secret to comprehending swords? The path of comprehending swords requires one to comprehend it on their own. Even if I told him, it's useless if he didn't comprehend it himself. Lin Shuai explained. Junior sister, don't have any bad opinions about junior brother Qin. After which, he shook his head with a bitter smile. No matter how he looked at it, Qin Wendian didn't seem like a lecherous fellow. Instead, he was tricked by his pet. The others were also discussing. Qin Wendian had already comprehended the eighth sword strike. In that case, would he be able to comprehend the ninth sword strike today? After the seventh sword strike, each sword strike represented a different path. The 8th to 14th sword strikes were all exceedingly difficult to comprehend. Maybe luck played a role in this sword strike. If he can comprehend another sword strike, I'll believe that his comprehension abilities are truly extraordinary. Someone stated, causing many to agree. If he can comprehend the 9th sword strike, he would be able to catch up to junior sister Li. Right now, Qin Wendian was only a step behind Li Hanyu. Before his eyes, another diagram appeared. This diagram was extremely similar to the one he comprehended earlier. A great rock soared through the skies, and with a single sword strike, the great rock perished. This extremely similar sword strike caused Qin Wendian to furrow his brows. It's almost the same as the one earlier. Qin Wendian mused. However, he understood that it was impossible for these two swords to be exactly the same. They walked different paths, yet they achieved the same effect. Raising his head, Qin Wendian looked at the thatched cottage in front of him. The cottage was still faintly discernible, as if it was very far away. What sort of character was the founder of the battle sword sect? This is just the 9th sword strike, yet it's already so profound. The wills of his mandates fused together, creating a brand new path of cultivation. Each and every sword strike represents a different path. This ancient path is like a path leading to the heavens. At this moment, Qin Wendian's heart was filled with reverence. He guessed that the founder of the battle sword sect must have reached an unimaginable realm. This ancient path was one that no one in the entire battle sword sect could complete, not even the sword sovereigns of the 9 mountains. Once, there was an ancestor of the battle sword sect who almost completed the ancient path, becoming invincible in the battle sword sect. From this, one could see how powerful the founder was. Most probably, he was in existence like a sword immortal, able to dominate the heavens with his sword. As he thought of this, Qin Wendian scrutinized this sword strike in detail. 2 hours later, he finally discovered that there was a slight difference between this sword strike and the previous one. That sword strike earlier, when the sword descended, the wind was akin to silk threads, carrying with it an unparalleled might, directly slashing the great rock into pieces. At that instant, Qin Wendian thought of the scene of wind and rain intersecting with each other. The cold wind mixed with the torrential downpour, and if it was magnified infinitely, coupled with the might of the sword, it would be possible to create a scene where the great rock was slain. Hence, he was able to comprehend that sword strike earlier. However, this sword strike was slightly different. Although the sword might was the same, at the instant the sword landed, there was a surge of destructive energy that directly caused the great rock's body to explode, completely destroying it. Are all the wills of mandates in the world able to fuse together? Qin Wendian was thinking that the founder left behind the sword comprehension grass hut because he wanted to tell the later generations about the ancient path leading to the heavens, telling them about the path of cultivation in the future. All wills of mandates were able to fuse together with everything else. And after fusing together, although the might would be even more terrifying, it would be extremely hard to find the shadow of the previous mandates. What is a constellation? Is it formed from the fusion of wills of mandates? Qin Wendian mused. If it was a celestial phenomenon ascendant trying to comprehend this sword strike, it would definitely be easier because their understanding of the martial Tao would be deeper. Qin Wendian placed his hand on the mountain rampart. Instantly, a beam of sword light shot up to the skies, causing the mountain rampart to dissipate. Qin Wendian mumbled, "This sword strike contains the essence of wind and thunder within it." As the sound of his voice faded, Qin Wendian stepped out. The ninth sword strike, comprehended. Qin Wendian was thinking that the fusion of wind and thunder would form a terrifying energy. It was just that the sword had become a medium to unleash their might. Because back then, the founder was a sword immortal, he used the sword as a medium. My current halberd arts, when I strike out with my halberd, wouldn't that be the same as the pulsation of energy? Faintly, there's also a trace of the will of the mandate of great earth within, granting me an even more terrifying destructive might. This path of comprehending swords, is the path I will walk on in the future. Qin Wendian sighed. The sword comprehension grass hut left behind by the founder didn't have any cultivation arts nor innate techniques. Yet, it was a path leading to the great Tao. If you cultivate the sword, using the sword as a medium, that would be the path of a sword immortal. The founder of the battle sword sect could be said to have put in a lot of effort. This sword comprehension grass hut was a supreme treasure, allowing the disciples to comprehend it themselves instead of being taught by others. This way, the disciples would be able to comprehend it even more deeply. Qin Wendian had already completed the ninth step. Beside him, there was another silhouette. This silhouette was an absolute beauty clad in robes made of phoenix feathers, exuding a heroic aura, causing people to want to stare up at her. This person was none other than Li Hanyu. Li Hanyu turned her gaze over, glancing at Qin Wendian beside her as a bright light flashed in her eyes. There was actually someone who had comprehended the ninth sword strike just like her. Not only that, this person was also very young. She had just joined the sect not long ago, and there were many disciples in the battle sword sect that she didn't recognize. In addition, she had no interest in knowing them. Hence, she didn't know that Qin Wendian had just joined the sect. She merely asked, "Have you comprehended the ninth sword strike before?" Her voice was gentle yet filled with sharpness, giving off a sense of dominance. At this moment, Qin Wendian also glanced at Li Hanyu. On the way here, he had also met a few people, but he didn't interact with them. This Li Hanyu exuded a domineering aura and an outstanding countenance. Even he couldn't help but to silently praise her. If it wasn't for Qingcheng and Qing being by his side, he would most probably be in awe of her beauty as well. Humph! Upon seeing Qin Wendian sizing her up, Li Hanyu coldly snorted, as hints of disdain could be seen in her eyes. These young men were all like this, they all had the same expression whenever they saw her. "I haven't." Qin Wendian casually replied. After which, he turned his gaze away, as calm as ever. His words caused a cold smile to appear in Li Hanyu's eyes. This person was truly impressive, he managed to instantly change his expression back to normal when he sensed her dissatisfaction, concealing it extremely well. However, these young men had used all sorts of methods to get close to her. How could they hide such insignificant tricks from her? The difficulty of this sword strike isn't something you can comprehend. Li Hanyu faintly spoke, exuding an air of arrogance. Qin Wendian frowned, but soon after, his brows relaxed. He ignored her and continued to stare at the diagram on the mountain rampart. A great rock soaring through the skies, breaking it with a single sword strike. This diagram was actually the exact same as the first sword strike, there were no flaws at all. In fact, Compared to the eighth sword strike, this sword strike was even more similar to the first sword strike, causing him to feel as though he had returned to the time when he comprehended the first sword strike. Breaking it with a single sword strike, like the wind. But how could it be exactly the same? This time around, Qin Wendian paused for 4 hours and was still unable to comprehend the ninth sword strike. This caused the spectators on the mountain peak to silently sigh. As expected, the difficulty of comprehending the 10th sword strike was even greater. Qin Wendian was able to comprehend the 9th sword strike. This had already caused many to be filled with admiration. His comprehension abilities must be extremely high. But for the 10th sword strike, even Li Hanyu couldn't comprehend it. Most probably, it would be extremely difficult for him to do so as well. Qin Wendian tried a few times, but all his attempts ended in failure. If he didn't comprehend it, his thoughts would fail and he wouldn't be able to comprehend the 10th sword strike. In the blink of an eye, the sky turned dark and bright again. A day had already passed, yet Qin Wendian and Li Hanyu were still standing there, unmoving. Qin Wendian carefully thought back to the first 9 sword strikes he comprehended, and even peeked at the 10th sword strike in his dreamscape. He saw it clearly, over and over again. Finally, at this moment, a hint of a smile appeared in Qin Wendian's eyes as he spoke in a low voice, "I understand now." Li Hanyu's gaze flickered as she stared at Qin Wendian. She coldly laughed, boasting shamelessly. The difficulty of this sword strike was something she had a deep understanding of. It was simply too difficult to comprehend. Qin Wendian glanced at her as he smiled, causing people to feel as though they were bathing in the spring breeze. After which, he placed his palms on the mountain wall and communicated with his thoughts. In an instant, a resplendent light flashed as a sword strike pierced through the heavens. The 10th sword strike was comprehended. Qin Wendian took a step forward, vanishing from Li Hanyu's sight. How is this possible? Li Hanyu had a look of astonishment on her face. She hadn't even comprehended the 10th sword strike, yet someone had already comprehended it before her. Thinking back to the smile on Qin Wendian's face when he left, Li Hanyu mused, could it be that this young man is extremely scheming? He had clearly comprehended the 10th sword strike before, but now he's intentionally doing this to attract my attention, wanting me to look at him in a different light? Li Hanyu didn't think too much about it, she continued staring at the mountain wall. No matter what, Qin Wendian had succeeded in comprehending the 10th sword strike. How could she allow herself to be trapped here forever? The spectators on the mountain peak couldn't help but to exclaim in admiration when they saw Qin Wendian comprehending the 10th sword strike. Right now, there was no longer anyone who doubted Qin Wendian's comprehension abilities. He arrived after Li Hanyu, yet he was the first to comprehend the 10th sword strike. Qin Wendian silently sighed in his heart. The 10th sword strike was indeed extremely difficult to comprehend. It was exactly the same as the 8th sword strike, both containing the mandate of wind and rain. It was simply unimaginable. Every type of mandate has different transformations. For wind, the first mandate is the speed of wind, while the second mandate is the lacerating wind. After a mandate reaches the perfection boundary, there would be many transformations, allowing it to fuse with other mandates, resulting in different transformations. Qin Wendian couldn't help but sigh in his heart. If two people cultivated the same mandates and fused them together, there was a possibility that their paths would be different. Just like the 8th and 10th sword strikes. The path ahead is still very long. Qin Wendian sighed deeply. Right now, he hadn't even comprehended a single second-level mandate to the perfection boundary, let alone fusing them together. Not only that, there was a possibility that his future path would require him to fuse multiple mandates together. Even he had no way to predict where he would go in the future. This 10th sword strike caused Qin Wendian to have some sort of comprehension. Next, within 3 days, he consecutively comprehended 4 sword strikes, causing a terrifying storm of swords to arise on the mountain path of the grass hut. Qin Wendian broke another record, causing the entire gorge to be filled with towering sword might. The spectators stared at the young man who was bathed in the radiance of the sword, incomparably resplendent. In fact, it was as though there were countless pairs of eyes in the skies watching everything that happened below. Qin Wentian, in 5 days, comprehended 14 sword strikes. Chapter 521. 14 sword strikes. Many people on the mountain peak were stunned. Who was this young man exactly? He actually managed to comprehend 14 sword strikes in a short span of 5 days, and his cultivation base wasn't that strong. Yiling Shuang was completely speechless now. Staring at the silhouette of Qin Wentian, her lips twitched as she glared at Little Rascal in her arms. Little Rascal's eyes were wide open as it stared ahead. How awesome! Awesome, you little lecher! Yiling Shuang smacked Little Rascal on its head, causing Little Rascal to glare at her in dissatisfaction. What are you looking at? Do you think you can rebel against me? Yiling Shuang spoke in disdain. You dare to bully me? Little Rascal glared at Yiling Shuang with a baleful look on its face, causing a look of satisfaction to appear on Yiling Shuang's face. Little Rascal, do you think you can rebel against me? But in the next instant, her expression completely vanished as her face turned red. She stared fixedly at Little Rascal in her arms, only to see Little Rascal glaring at her angrily as its little claws actually reached out to grab her. You! Yiling Shuang screamed in agony. The gazes of the spectators all turned to her. Yiling Shuang's reaction was also extremely fast. She immediately hugged Little Rascal tightly, not allowing others to see this embarrassing scene. Junior sister, what's wrong? Lu Yun curiously stared at Yiling Shuang as he asked. Nothing. Yiling Shuang's face was slightly red, causing her beauty to be even more alluring. She shook her head unceasingly, but in her heart, she hated Qin Wentian to the core. Qin Wentian was actually a lecher who was so adorable, simply bewitching the hearts of others. Lu Yun was somewhat bewildered. He stared at Yiling Shuang's chest only to see Little Rascal doing his best to squeeze out. An innocent look could be seen in its eyes. What are you looking at? Yiling Shuang angrily roared, causing Lu Yun to shiver. He hurriedly shifted his gaze away, pretending that nothing had happened. He then spoke in a low voice. Junior brother Qin is truly awesome. He actually managed to comprehend 14 sword strikes. Upon hearing Lu Yun's nonsense, Yiling Shuang gritted her teeth. Seems like the two of them were birds of the same feather. Junior brother Qin is indeed awesome. However, I'm afraid he has no way to comprehend the 15th sword strike. In our battle sword sect, there hasn't been anyone who could comprehend it before. Lin Shuai spoke. Only then did Yiling Shuang stop speaking. She turned her gaze to Qin Wentian. At this moment, Qin Wentian arrived before another mountain rampart. There was a diagram on it as well. Violent ancient demons were howling madly, sweeping through the heavens and earth, wanting to devour everything, annihilating all lives. These ancient demons had evil dragons and evil phoenixes, causing the lives of the living to be plunged into misery and suffering. However, at this moment, a sword slashed out, landing right in the center of the mountain rampart. In an instant, with the sword as the center, everything was annihilated. Qin Wentian's heart pounded violently. The might of this sword strike was simply too terrifying. As the sword descended, everything was destroyed. This time around, he couldn't see any will of mandates contained within. He could only feel the destructive might of the sword strike. Is this the sublimation of the fusion of the wills of mandates? Qin Wentian murmured, sighing in his heart. He had no idea what this sword strike was. He couldn't see through it at all. For the previous 14 sword strikes, he could sense the existence of the will of mandates. But for this sword strike, he couldn't sense it at all. Maybe, this is the true perfect fusion of the wills of mandates, giving birth to a brand new type of power, a truly terrifying power. Qin Wentian murmured. But even so, his eyes flickered with determination. He wanted to comprehend this sword strike and see through the profoundness within. Closing his eyes, he forgot everything. In his dreamscape, there was only this sword strike. For the sake of comprehending this sword strike, Qin Wentian didn't rest for 7 days. But after 7 days, he could only bitterly smile and shake his head, knowing that he was powerless. Qin Wentian's personality was stubborn, no matter what he did, he would always be like this. Back then, he dared to enter the Pill Emperor Hall alone, this was a testament to his character. However, it wasn't that he didn't know his limits. He couldn't see through the 15th sword strike at all, it was impossible for him to comprehend it. His cultivation base was still insufficient, at least for now. Since this was the case, he could only give up. Turning around, Qin Wendian calmly walked back. He had no idea that he had broken 2 records. His countenance was extremely calm. Although his cultivation base didn't increase, he could faintly see the path ahead of him. Li Hanyu was still trying to comprehend the 9th sword strike. At this moment, a hint of comprehension flashed in her eyes as a smile appeared on her face. This sword strike was truly marvelous, but in the end, it was still comprehended by her. However, at this moment, a silhouette appeared beside her. Li Hanyu stared at the returning Qin Wendian as she coldly laughed, "Are you unable to comprehend any more sword strikes?" Qin Wendian lightly nodded his head, he didn't say anything. Li Hanyu's countenance was filled with an innate arrogance. Most probably, her status was extraordinary, but this had nothing to do with him. Li Hanyu placed her palms on the illusory mountain rampart in front of her as a complacent expression appeared on her face. She stepped out, comprehending the 10th sword strike. Qin Wendian lightly shook his head as he left the grass hut. After which, he stared in the air, only to see that there were many silhouettes staring at him, causing Qin Wendian to feel bewildered. It seemed like there were many more people here compared to when he first entered the grass hut. Not only that, their gazes were all on him. His silhouette flickered as Qin Wendian soared through the air, arriving beside Lin Shuai as he asked, "Senior brother, what's wrong? You consecutively broke records, yet you're asking me what's wrong?" Lin Shuai laughed. Qin Wendian froze for a moment before a bitter smile appeared on his face. Seems like his comprehension speed was too fast, causing such a commotion. "I'll return this little lecture to you." Yi Lingshuang tossed little rascal over to Qin Wendian. Qin Wendian stared at her in bewilderment, only to see Yi Lingshuang glaring fiercely at him. "You have an innocent look in your eyes. To be able to nurture such a little lecher, I'm sure you're not a good person." Qin Wendian's face was filled with black lines as he stared at little rascal. What did this fellow do to attract such a strong resentment from Yi Lingshuang? "Ha, junior brother Qin, junior sister Lingshuang's words are always straightforward. Don't mind her, let's interact more in the future. I heard that you just arrived in the southern domain, so I'm afraid you don't know much about this place yet. If there's an opportunity, senior brother here will bring you around." Lu Yun shot a knowing look at Qin Wendian as he smiled. The fairies of the Neon Moon Inn and Lakeside Lodge are all extremely charming and talented. "Junior brother, if there's an opportunity, you must definitely go and take a look." Yi Lingshuang glared at Lu Yun, while Qin Wendian had an awkward smile on his face. However, a voice drifted over from the air, "You bastard, you're here to lead your junior brother astray again." As the sound of the voice faded, an old man appeared in the air. This man had a smile on his face, exuding an extremely amiable aura. He stared at Qin Wendian and laughed, "Little fellow, I'm Lu Yun's master. Are you interested in becoming my disciple? How can a disciple taught by you have any future prospects? Little fellow, follow me." A black-robed silhouette appeared, standing in the air. This person exuded an imposing aura even without being angry, exuding a powerful aura. "The experts on this mountain are as common as the clouds, why is there a need to snatch people away? Just follow me." Another expert appeared, causing many to be stunned. After which, another 5 to 6 people appeared, all of them were elder-level characters of the Battle Sword sect. All of them wanted to become Qin Wendian's master, causing many to be filled with envy. Such treatment was extremely rare. Han Yu is this seat's disciple and has already comprehended 10 sword strikes. You were able to comprehend 14 within 5 days. From this, one can see that your comprehension abilities are extremely high. Even if you are lacking in other areas, this seat will still help you catch up to others. If your performance is outstanding, this seat will personally guide you. From afar, an ethereal voice drifted over, causing everyone to be startled. Those elder-level characters all had bitter smiles on their faces. The Plum Mountain Sword Sovereigness actually spoke. Most probably, the Plum Mountain Sword Sovereigness was paying attention to Li Hanyu and discovered that Qin Wendian had comprehended the sword strikes. The Plum Mountain Sword Sovereigness was a female, yet the arrogance in her voice was shocking. Although Qin Wendian hadn't seen her in person, he knew that the Plum Mountain Sword Sovereigness was an extraordinary character. Just a single voice was enough to cause the entire mountain to fall silent. Li Hanyu's silhouette flickered as she stepped out from the grass hut. Her countenance changed. This was the voice of her master. Her master was actually inviting someone to join her sect. Turning her gaze over, a strange light flickered in her eyes when she saw Qin Wendian. Back then, she had taken the initiative to join the Plum Mountain Sword Sovereigness, and because of her outstanding performance, she was accepted as a personal disciple. Junior brother, it's the Plum Mountain Sword Sovereigness. Lu Yun's expression turned solemn as he reminded. From the seriousness in his voice, one could tell that the Plum Mountain Sword Sovereigness was extremely powerful. Qin Wendian glanced in the direction of the Plum Mountain Sword Sovereigness as he replied, "Many thanks for Senior's kindness, but Junior has yet to make up his mind." As the sound of his voice faded, the crowd fell into silence. Never would they have imagined that Qin Wendian would directly reject her. All of them stared at him in bewilderment. As expected of someone who joined the Battle Sword sect. He had character, to actually reject the invitation of the Plum Mountain Sword Sovereigness. Li Hanyu's eyes flashed with coldness, feeling indignant in her heart. She had gone through untold hardships to become the personal disciple of the Plum Mountain Sword Sovereigness, and now, the Plum Mountain Sword Sovereigness personally invited her, yet she was actually rejected. Rejected, a towering might enveloped the heavens and earth. Evidently, the Plum Mountain Sword Sovereigness also didn't expect that Qin Wendian would reject her. Very good. A voice rang out, causing the entire space to tremble. It's good to have character, but you have to weigh your own weight and conduct yourself well. As the sound of that voice faded, the might of the Plum Mountain Sword Sovereigness vanished. What sort of character was the Plum Mountain Sword Sovereigness? It was already extremely rare for her to take the initiative to invite Qin Wendian. But given her status, she naturally wouldn't go so far as to make things difficult for Qin Wendian. Qin Wendian's countenance was exceedingly calm. Just from the tone of her voice, he could tell that the Plum Mountain Sword Sovereigness was extremely domineering. Naturally, she had the qualifications to do so. After all, she was an elite adept of a generation, the Plum Mountain Sword Sovereigness. However, the domineering tone of her voice made Qin Wendian extremely unhappy. Since he didn't like it, he would reject it. There was nothing strange about this. This was just like what Lin Shuai had said, when doing things, follow your heart. Yi Lingshuang also had a new level of respect for Qin Wendian. Not everyone would have such courage and daring to reject the invitation of the Plum Mountain Sword Sovereigness. Lin Shuai had a smile on his face, as a hint of admiration could be seen on his face. His martial ancestor didn't personally act against Qin Wendian, choosing to borrow the strength of the Battle Sword sect instead. Could it be that Qin Wendian had also rejected him before? However, this thought only flashed past his mind for an instant. He didn't dare to think too much about it. Chapter 522. After Qin Wendian rejected the Plum Mountain Sword Sovereigness, he naturally understood how high the prestige of the Plum Mountain Sword Sovereigness was. Shaking his head, he turned to Lin Shuai. "Senior brother, let me find a place to stay first." Qin Wendian spoke. Sure. You and junior sister Qing can choose a place to stay first. After that, you can follow me to the first mountain." Lin Shuai had a smile on his face. Since he had already brought Qin Wendian here, he should greet his master first. After all, Qin Wendian was someone his master wanted. Sure. Qin Wendian had no objections. The few of them then soared into the air. Li Hanyu stepped out and landed on the mountain peak. Instantly, several extraordinary young men appeared beside her. For a moment, Li Hanyu was like the moon surrounded by stars. How many swords did this person comprehend? Li Hanyu asked. Junior sister, this person just joined the sect and he managed to comprehend 14 swords within 5 days. A person spoke. Momentarily, Li Hanyu's expression froze as the pride in her heart suffered a heavy blow. Right now, even she had only comprehended 10 swords. Junior sister, there's no need to worry. Comprehending swords is related to one's luck and comprehension ability. It doesn't represent one's talent. That person consoled. Li Hanyu nodded her head lightly. Don't worry, I, Li Hanyu, am not someone who would belittle myself. But since this person was able to comprehend 14 swords, he can already be considered extraordinary. I wonder how high his combat prowess and talent are exactly. Qin Wendian and Qing first found a cultivation paradise on the first mountain below Sword Sovereign Ling Tian. The distance between the two cultivation paradises wasn't too far, it was quiet and beautiful. After that, they came before an ancient mountain peak. There was a winding ancient path leading to the top of the mountain, resembling a stairway to the heavens. Beside the path, there was a waterfall, splashing water everywhere. This place truly resembled a paradise in the mortal world. Qing and Little Rascal didn't come with them. Qin Wendian followed Lin Shuai and the others here. Inclining his head, he stared at the heavenly stairway of the ancient mountain. Qin Wendian ascended the stairway step by step. Lin Shuai and the others all had expressions of respect on their faces. At the edge of the waterfall, there were many guards with ancient swords on their backs. When they saw Lin Shuai and the others, they would nod their heads slightly. An instant later, only Lin Shuai could continue ascending. Yi Lingshuang and the others remained at the waist of the stairway. This was the place where the Sword Sovereign taught his disciples. Without their orders, no one was allowed to ascend. However, Lin Shuai actually brought Qin Wendian up, causing strange expressions to appear on the faces of Yi Lingshuang and the others. Senior brother Lin Shuai actually directly brought Qin Wendian to meet with the sect leader. What was the background of this Qin Wendian? Junior brother is back. When Qin Wendian and Lin Shuai arrived at the entrance of the heavenly stairway, they saw a maiden clad in white walking out. This maiden had a neat and tidy appearance, and although she couldn't be considered very beautiful, her facial features were delicate and dignified, giving off a faint sense of majesty. This is my 6th senior sister, Zhang Yu. Lin Shuai introduced. Senior sister. Qin Wendian called out. Most probably, this maiden was also a disciple under the Sword Sovereign. Such a young celestial phenomenon ascendant would definitely be a character at the peak of Grand Xia. The world outside was truly powerful. Junior brother Wendian, master is already waiting for you. The white-robed maiden smiled at Qin Wendian. Her smile caused people to feel extremely comfortable, as though it was made by nature itself. Qin Wendian felt somewhat bewildered. The sect leader of the Battle Sword sect was personally waiting for him. With bewilderment in his heart, he followed the white-robed maiden into the Great Hall. There were several disciples of the Battle Sword sect here, and as for the front, there was a person casually standing there, akin to a supreme sword. Although he didn't exude any aura, he gave off a terrifying pressure to Qin Wendian, causing him to feel as though it was extremely difficult to take a single step forward. Junior pays my respects to the sect leader. Qin Wendian could guess that this person was none other than the sect leader of the Battle Sword sect, Sword Sovereign Ling Tian. Emichim, I've already heard about you from them. Release your martial soul and will of mandates for me to see. Sword Sovereign Ling Tian smiled as he stared at Qin Wendian. Although he didn't exude any aura, Qin Wendian was still able to calmly face the pressure emanating from him. This could already be considered rare. At the instant the sound of his voice faded, Qin Wendian felt all the pressure on him vanishing. It was as though the person standing in front of him was an extremely ordinary mortal. Able to retract and retract as I please. Qin Wendian knew that Sword Sovereign Ling Tian's cultivation had already reached another level. Now that he was in a place like the Battle Sword Sect, it was no longer something Grand Xia could compare to. He didn't have too many misgivings and released his astral souls and will of mandates at the same time. The resplendent astral souls illuminated the entire Great Hall. The flickering astral souls were so blinding that they could pierce the eyes of those who looked at them. Sword Sovereign Ling Tian's eyes abruptly erupted with a resplendent light. Even with his state of heart, he actually couldn't control his aura at this instant, causing the entire Great Hall to be filled with a stifling pressure, albeit only for an instant. Enough. The light in Sword Sovereign Ling Tian's eyes gradually retracted, yet his heart trembled. As the sect leader of the Battle Sword Sect, how many geniuses had he seen before? He had even met some heaven-defying geniuses who intentionally delayed their cultivation to increase their perception, allowing them to condense an astral soul from the fifth heavenly layer when they condensed their second astral soul. However, this was the first time he met someone who condensed an astral soul from the fifth heavenly layer as their first astral soul. Not only that, he heard that Qin Wendian came from the desolate and desolate land of Grand Xia. This was simply unimaginable. Lin Shuai, Sang Yu, and the rest were all stunned as their hearts pounded. How strong was the perception of this junior brother of theirs? Force, dream, demon, sword. The attacking power of your mandates should be extremely strong. If you use this combination well, your attacks would definitely be at the peak. At that instant, Sword Sovereign Ling Tian had already sensed Qin Wendian's mandates. Force, demon, and sword, all of them had the attribute of attack. Dream, on the other hand, had the attribute of bewilderment. Qin Wendian nodded his head lightly, but he didn't reply. Force, demon, and sword can allow your attacks to unceasingly multiply, allowing you to walk towards the limit. Firstly, you have to reach the perfection boundary of your mandates. Secondly, you can continue to increase the strength of your fleshly body. The strength of your fleshly body is the foundation. Once your foundation is raised, when you use your mandates to multiply your attacks, the effects would be even more obvious. Sword Sovereign Ling Tian explained. Qin Wendian naturally understood this logic. If his physical strength grew stronger, his mandate of force and mandate of demon would be able to multiply his attacks unceasingly, and the effects would be even more terrifying. However, in the past, when his cultivation base was raised, his fleshly body would also be strengthened. The fiend transformation art had also strengthened his physique, but it was already extremely difficult to raise his foundation. In addition, you've already been to the grass hut. You should know that even if it's just a simple fusion of mandates, there would still be unfathomable effects. Sword Sovereign Ling Tian spoke to Qin Wendian. Junior has already tried it before. When I infused different mandates into my halberd arts, the might of my attacks would indeed be much stronger. Although this fusion is only at the simplest level. Qin Wendian replied. From the 15th sword strike onwards, only then would one truly enter a deeper level of fusion. And right now, he had only comprehended the 1st to the 7th sword strike. The sword was merely a vessel. No wonder you can comprehend the 14th sword strike. However, don't stray into the wrong path. The reason why everything in the grass hut is based on the sword is because the founder was a sword immortal. Not only that, the sword can easily fuse the mandates of wind, rain, thunder, and lightning into it. However, different mandates can be used as a vessel. For example, your heavenly hammer astral soul, mandate of force, and mandate of great earth are much easier to fuse. Sword Sovereign Ling Tian's words were extremely casual, causing Qin Wendian to unknowingly feel a sense of closeness. Many thanks for Senior's guidance. Qin Wendian understood that Sword Sovereign Ling Tian was worried that Qin Wendian would stray into the wrong path of the sword. You have to rely on yourself to walk your own path. Predecessors can only give you some pointers. Ultimately, how far you can walk on your own path will depend on your own talent, hard work, and luck. There's no need for you to take me as your master, but if you have any questions, you can look for me. First, follow Lin Shuai to the Gravity Mountain to cultivate. As for your little girlfriend, I will introduce her to a good teacher. If she is unwilling, I won't force her. Okay. Qin Wendian felt joy in his heart. He didn't expect Sword Sovereign Ling Tian to treat him so generously. He felt extremely grateful in his heart. As for Sword Sovereign Ling Tian's misunderstanding of Qing, as his girlfriend, he didn't bother to explain. Junior brother, let's go. Lin Shuai smiled. Qin Wendian bowed to Sword Sovereign Ling Tian before he left with Lin Shuai. Sword Sovereign Ling Tian stared at the departing back of Qin Wendian as a smile appeared on his face. He silently mused that his master's judgment was indeed extremely sharp. He would naturally do his best to send this young man into the battle sword sect. Not only that, he had to do so in a dazzling manner. If not, it would be hard for him to gain recognition. This was also the reason why he didn't allow Qin Wendian to take him as his master. Junior brother Qin, you are truly astonishing. After exiting the Great Hall, Lin Shuai spoke. The combination of Qin Wendian's astral souls was simply too shocking. Qin Wendian smiled but he didn't reply. Yiling Shuang then asked, Senior, what's wrong? Nothing much. Lin Shuai smiled and shook his head. Master wants me to bring junior brother Qin to the Gravity Mountain. Ah! Yiling Shuang screamed, while Lu Yun rolled his eyes. Both of them tactfully didn't say anything, causing Qin Wendian to be extremely curious about this place. The Gravity Mountain was located in a ravine within a mountain range. At the sides of the ravine, there were several ink-colored boulders that gave off a heavy feeling. There were also ancient trees that were incomparably thick and sturdy, so thick that even 10 people wouldn't be able to wrap their arms around them. This is the Gravity Mountain. Qin Wendian stared at the ravine ahead as he asked. Yes. Junior brother, the boulders below weigh over 10,000 jin. You have to move them all to the other side of the ravine before moving them back. As for those ancient trees, you have to use an axe and chop down 100 of them before you can move them out. Lin Shuai explained. How difficult can that be? Qin Wendian laughed. Yiling Shuang, who was behind him, had a strange expression on her face. In that case, you can leave now. Lin Shuai smiled. Right. Qin Wendian nodded. Stepping out, he flew towards the ravine. However, when he arrived in the airspace above the ravine, Qin Wendian's countenance abruptly changed. A terrifying pressure bore down on him, causing his body to plummet downwards. How heavy! Qin Wendian's countenance drastically changed. With a thunderous boom, his body directly slammed into the ground. Even his legs found it hard to stand straight, and he felt as though his entire body was falling apart. His entire body felt extremely uncomfortable, and his internal organs felt as though they were collapsing. Junior brother Qin, cultivate well. Lin Shuai smiled. After speaking, he turned and departed. Yiling Shuang had a complacent expression on her face, while Ling Yun looked at Qin Wendian with sympathy. Enjoy yourself, and don't forget to move the boulders and chop down the trees. How can it be so terrifying? Qin Wendian straightened his back. He only felt an extremely powerful force acting on his entire body. Even the astral energy in his body couldn't circulate smoothly. He suddenly thought of something. When a type of energy reached its limit, it would undergo a qualitative change. This gravity domain had reached its limit. Boom! With every step he took, the earth rumbled. Qin Wendian glanced at the gigantic boulders, before glancing at the ancient trees. He felt an impulse to cry. Chapter 523. A month later, in the canyon above the Gravity Mountain, Lu Yun sat there drinking wine. Occasionally, he would glance down and see a young man clad in thin robes sprinting with all his might. This fellow's adaptability is truly strong. Junior sister Ling Shuang, do you want a sip? Lu Yun stretched his wine gourd towards Yiling Shuang, only to see Yiling Shuang glaring at him. It's fine if you don't want to drink. Why must you be so fierce? No matter what, you are still a princess. Lu Yun kept his wine gourd, only to see Yiling Shuang's countenance turning heavy as sadness flickered in her eyes. Lu Yun. Jiang Huai, who was standing behind, coldly spoke. Lu Yun continued drinking as he faintly replied, "Junior sister, calm down a little. I didn't say anything wrong." "I know." Yiling Shuang softly replied, her words causing Lu Yun's countenance to falter. After which, he joked, "Why don't junior sister marry me? I will definitely take good care of you." Scram. Yiling Shuang cursed. This bastard's skin was truly thick. Sigh, seems like I still have to go to the lakeside lodge to look for Fairy Z. I'll come back next month to visit him. Lu Yun turned and walked away in a carefree manner. Yiling Shuang and Jiang Huai didn't leave. Yiling Shuang stared at the sprinting Qin Wendian as she silently mused, what a strong adaptability, to be able to run at such a speed. When Qin Wendian first stepped into the Gravity Mountain Canyon, even walking was difficult. The gravity here was simply too terrifying. Only after an entire month did he slowly get used to it. Now, he could rely on his own will and strength to run, unceasingly surpassing his own limits. At this moment, Qin Wendian walked to the side of a huge black boulder as he mumbled in a low voice, "I wonder how heavy this boulder is." Qin Wendian circulated the astral energy in his body as he infused his will into his arms. With a sudden burst of strength, rumbling sounds rang out as Qin Wendian lifted up a gigantic boulder. However, an instant later, a terrifying rumbling sound echoed out as the earth cracked apart. The gigantic boulder landed on the ground as Qin Wendian collapsed onto the ground, panting for breath. This boulder is only 5,000 jin, but that's in other places. The gravity here is 1,000 times stronger. Qin Wendian lamented in his heart. He couldn't even lift a single stone. Helplessly, he walked towards the direction of the forest, picked up the axe beside him, and chopped at the ancient tree. However, he discovered that the ancient tree only had a layer of skin broken. He couldn't help but lament in his heart. Although his strength was now very limited, this ancient tree was a bit too sturdy. Turning his head back, he glanced at the row of gigantic boulders. There seemed to be some smaller boulders as well. Walking over, he carried the smaller boulder in his arms and started to walk forward with great difficulty. Every step he took left a deep footprint on the ground, as though he had sunk into the ground. So heavy. Qin Wendian felt extremely depressed, but he could only grit his teeth and persevere. After walking over 10 steps, his entire body was already drenched in sweat, but he still gritted his teeth. This tempering exercise in the mountain of gravity allowed him to find the feeling he had when he first stepped on the path of cultivation. The most primitive feeling, constantly breaking through his limits, squeezing out all the power of his body, causing it to grow stronger. During this month, he gradually got used to the terrifying gravity. This in itself was already a huge improvement. Qin Wendian silently tempered himself in the mountain of gravity. Occasionally, he would see others entering the mountain of gravity to temper themselves. 3 months later, he was finally able to lift a boulder, and at the same time, he wielded his axe, chopping down ancient trees. Every month, Lu Yun and Yiling Shuang would come to visit him. Today, Qin Wendian was chopping trees again. Right now, every chop of his axe was extremely effortless, as though it was a habit. He tried to infuse his will of mandates into the axe, and every chop he chopped down would have a slight improvement. As time passed, this improvement would be magnified, allowing him to chop deeper into the tree. This fellow's improvement is so fast. Lu Yun and the others came again. They sat on the roof of the mountain of gravity and watched as Qin Wendian chopped down with his axe. Deep cracks actually appeared on the ancient trees, and after tens of chops, an ancient tree collapsed. This time around, Lu Yun didn't leave. He watched as Qin Wendian chopped down trees. Not even a day had passed, and Qin Wendian had already chopped down 100 trees. However, he didn't give up and continued chopping. Don't tell me he's preparing to chop down all the trees in the mountain of gravity. The elders in charge of planting trees would definitely feel heartache, Lu Yun mumbled. Lu Yun mumbled. Every single tree here was like a seed. It would allow the ancient trees to grow rapidly, allowing the disciples of the battle sword sect to chop them down. Why is it getting weaker and weaker? Why does it take so long to chop down a single tree? Lu Yun furrowed his brows, feeling somewhat puzzled. He's not using his will of mandates, he's using pure strength to chop down the trees. Yiling Shuang spoke, her words causing Lu Yun to blink. Yiling Shuang. At this moment, a voice drifted over from afar. Yiling Shuang turned her head only to see a silhouette walking over, causing a strange expression to appear on Yiling Shuang's face. This was the disciple in charge of transmitting messages from the battle sword sect. What happened? Here's your letter. The other party passed a letter to Yiling Shuang. Yiling Shuang opened it and instantly felt her entire body turning cold. Her countenance turned ashen. Junior sister, what's wrong? Lu Yun asked seriously when he saw the expression on Yiling Shuang's face. My father is heavily injured, his life is in danger. Yiling Shuang spoke, her words causing Lu Yun's heart to tremble. He knew who Yiling Shuang was. She was a princess of an ancient country, and her father was the emperor of a generation. This ancient country had existed for over 10,000 years and was extremely powerful. The internal conflicts were extremely complicated, and Lu Yun faintly knew a little about it. Did the Violet Thunder sect interfere? Lu Yun asked. I don't know. Yiling Shuang's countenance was still pale. Lu Yun spoke again, let's report this to Master and see if there's a solution. There are also medical experts in the battle sword sect. Yiling Shuang placed the letter down as she replied in a low voice, we've already invited the Holy Maiden of the Medicine Sovereign Valley. Lu Yun's eyes flashed with sharpness as he continued, the newly promoted Holy Maiden of the Medicine Sovereign Valley has already broken through to a 5th-ranked Pill King not too long ago. Not only that, she has also obtained the true inheritance of the Medicine Sovereign. In the current younger generation of the Royal Sacred Region, she can be considered a legendary character. Since we've already invited her, there shouldn't be any problems. The Holy Maiden of the Medicine Sovereign Valley was also a legendary character. It was said that back then when she was sent into the Medicine Sovereign Valley, she was on the verge of death. However, the identity of the person who sent her into the Medicine Sovereign Valley was unknown, and the Medicine Sovereign actually personally acted to save her. Not only that, the Medicine Sovereign used all of his effort to cleanse her marrows and reconstruct her life force. After that, he even imparted all of his knowledge to her, causing this Holy Maiden to soar up like a shooting star. Even the true name of the Holy Maiden of the Medicine Sovereign Valley was unknown. They won't give up so easily. Yiling Shuang's heart was in a mess, yet she didn't have the time to think too much. Right now, she didn't know what to do. Let's look for senior brother and let him think of a solution. Let's go. Lu Yun knew that right now, Yiling Shuang's heart was in a mess. He instantly made his decision and brought Yiling Shuang away. Yiling Shuang's heart was still filled with sorrow. A heaven-shaking genius had appeared in the ancient country. From then on, the internal factions of the ancient country grew even more divided. Her elder brother, who was slightly older than her, had outstanding talent and was able to enter the Violet Thunder sect. He didn't even need to pass the examination and was directly sent to the Royal Sacred Sect. This was the promise of the Violet Thunder sect. And now, what level had he grown to? All of this, Qin Wentian had no idea. He was still chopping trees, and when he was tired, he would take a break before continuing to move the huge boulders. Right now, he was more than willing to do these things, and was extremely optimistic. Occasionally, he would gain some insights and practice his axe on the huge boulder, or brandish his heavenly hammer. Such days passed by extremely contentedly. Although his cultivation base didn't increase, he wasn't in a rush either. When the time comes, success will come naturally. Only with a solid foundation would one's combat prowess grow stronger. Another 2 days passed. Qin Wentian lay comfortably on the huge boulder. The sunlight cascaded down on him, illuminating the contours of his body. That was the beauty of strength. Right now, the terrifying gravitational force in the canyon gradually faded away. He knew that he was currently undergoing a baptism, and his physique was much stronger compared to before. Junior brother Qin. A voice interrupted Qin Wentian's beautiful dream. Opening his eyes, he saw Lin Shuai standing on top of the canyon. Senior brother. Qin Wentian sat up as he stared at Lin Shuai. What's wrong? The entire forest has been chopped down by you, yet you still don't want to come out? Lin Shuai glanced at the forest as his heart shuddered. This fellow was truly powerful, to think that he could adapt so quickly and even chop down the entire forest. Qin Wentian smiled. After which, he stomped on the ground and soared up into the air, landing at the edge of the canyon. At this instant, without the powerful gravitational force, Qin Wentian felt as though his entire body was as light as a feather. Such a feeling was simply too wonderful. Senior brother, why are you so free to come over? Qin Wentian laughed. Let me tell you something. Your senior sister Yiling Shuang is the princess of an ancient country with a history of over 10,000 years. However, there are a few powerful kings in the Yi country. In addition, Yiling Shuang has a cousin who is around the same age as her and is a descendant of a king. His talent is unparalleled and he joined the Violet Thunder sect, causing the Yi clan's struggle for the throne to be extremely intense. Lin Shuai slowly explained, his words causing Qin Wentian's expression to stiffen as he instantly understood. The kings of ancient countries were extremely powerful and they even had the support of the Violet Thunder sect. Most probably, they wanted to seize the throne. The Yi country itself is extremely powerful. Initially, my Battle Sword sect and the Violet Thunder sect shouldn't be involved in their internal strife. But because of some special reasons, the Violet Thunder sect is involved in this. Yiling Shuang's father, a human emperor, is currently heavily injured and on the verge of death. Hence, the Yi country invited the Holy Maiden of the Medicine Sovereign Valley to act. Lin Shuai continued as he turned and walked away. Qin Wentian followed behind Lin Shuai, not saying anything. Since Lin Shuai came here to tell him this, there must be a reason behind it. Ling Shuang wishes to return immediately, but I'm worried that something might happen to her. Hence, I stopped her. After all, with her current strength, there's no use for her to return. In fact, she might even be plotted against. At the same time, I've also sent people to investigate the situation in the Yi country. Now that the situation is extremely urgent, my Battle Sword sect is preparing to send some disciples to the capital of the Yi country. Qin Wentian nodded his head lightly. Although he wouldn't be able to change anything with his current cultivation base, since Lin Shuai said this, it was obvious that he hoped for him to go out and roam the world, tempering himself. An instant later, Qin Wentian saw a group of silhouettes preparing to set off. It was none other than Yiling Shuang and her companions. If you guys are together, no one would dare to plot against Ling Shuang. Also, junior brother Qin, you have to remember an unwritten rule. In the royal sacred region, there are many conflicts between the transcendent powers. Heavenly Dipper sovereigns can't interfere in the matters of celestial phenomenon ascendants, but if a Heavenly Dipper sovereign dies because of a conflict between disciples, celestial phenomenon ascendants are forbidden from taking revenge. If not, a war would easily erupt. Lin Shuai spoke, his words causing Qin Wentian's expression to stiffen. He had once experienced the conflict between the transcendent powers of Grand Xia. Once a conflict broke out between the upper echelons of Grand Xia, it would basically be a war between sections. Only when one side was annihilated would the conflict cease. Most probably, the transcendent powers of the royal sacred region also feared war between sects, which was why there was such an unwritten rule. Chapter 524. Within the Battle Sword sect, over 10 young men rode on their flying swords and soared up into the air, transforming into beams of white light. This group of silhouettes were none other than the disciples of the Battle Sword sect who were heading to Yi. Qin Wentian was naturally among them. These disciples were all at the Heavenly Dipper realm. After all, Yi was an ancient country with a history of over 10,000 years. It was impossible for the Battle Sword sect to forcefully interfere with the internal affairs of an ancient country. It was only because of the friendship between them that these disciples were willing to accompany Yiling Shuang on this trip. At the very least, they could ensure her safety. The leader of this group was a young man in black. His cultivation base was at the 8th level of Heavenly Dipper, and he was the personal disciple of Sword Sovereign Ling Tian, Duan Han. The status of the direct disciples of the Sword Master was generally higher. For example, Duan Han was ranked 9th under Sword Master Ling Tian, but if he was placed among the disciples of the First Mountain, he obviously wouldn't have such a high ranking. However, everyone still called him 9th senior brother. This was the treatment of the direct disciples of the Sword Master. Duan Han's demeanor was extremely cold, completely different from Lin Shuai. He exuded an unmasked sharpness and didn't like to talk much. Such silence added a sense of majesty to him. Junior sister, don't worry too much. Since the Holy Maiden of the Medicine Sovereign Valley is here, she should be able to temporarily suppress Emperor Ye's injuries. A female disciple beside Yiling Shuang consoled. Her name was Qiao Yu, and her relationship with Yiling Shuang in the Battle Sword sect had always been pretty good. Yiling Shuang nodded lightly, but the worry in her eyes couldn't be masked. I heard that the Holy Maiden of the Medicine Sovereign Valley is a peerless beauty. I'll be able to meet her soon. How exciting! Lu Yun's eyes gleamed, causing the others to stare at him with disdain. Although this fellow had a lecherous personality, his words always made others feel relaxed. You have no hope. Qiao Yu spoke with disdain. The Holy Maiden of the Medicine Sovereign Valley, a 5th-ranked alchemist. Even the geniuses from the various ancient countries and clans who wished to propose marriage would trample over the gates of the Medicine Sovereign Valley. However, the Medicine Sovereign Valley wouldn't allow them to enter. The most important thing is that the Holy Maiden herself of the Medicine Sovereign Valley likes me. For someone as handsome as me, I might be able to gain her favor. Lu Yun was currently dreaming. Qin Wendian felt pain in his heart when he heard their words as he involuntarily thought of Mo Qingcheng. The Pill Emperor Hall of the past was similar to the current Medicine Sovereign Valley. Such a transcendent power that specialized in pill concoction was a target that all the major powers wanted to recruit. However, he had no idea of Mo Qingcheng of the Pill of Qin. When he thought back to the time when the Pill Emperor Hall sent Qingcheng to be sacrificed as a sacrifice, flames of rage burned in his heart. He would definitely return to the Pill Emperor Hall. However, was Qingcheng still alive in this world? He had once investigated in Grand Xia, but there was no news of Mo Qingcheng at all. After he fainted during that battle, Mo Qingcheng also completely vanished, as though she had never appeared in Grand Xia before. The Pill Emperor Hall also didn't say anything about her. What are you thinking about? Don't tell me you also have designs on the Holy Maiden of the Medicine Sovereign Valley? Lu Yun smiled as he glanced at Qin Wendian beside him. Qin Wendian shook his head as he asked, the Holy Maiden of the Medicine Sovereign Valley is a 5th-ranked alchemist. Is this power very strong? Naturally, but I have no idea how strong they are exactly. Because the Medicine Sovereign Valley doesn't have any conflicts with others, nobody would find trouble with them. Hence, their status in the Royal Sacred Region is transcendent. Not only that, the Medicine Sovereign is a 5th-ranked alchemist. Even for the peak powers including the 9 great sects, who can guarantee that they wouldn't need his help one day. In terms of alchemy, the Medicine Sovereign Valley is even stronger than the Royal Sacred Sect, standing at the pinnacle of the Royal Sacred Region. Lu Yun slowly explained, his words causing Qin Wendian to silently nod his head. As expected of a transcendent power. On the way, Qin Wendian and Lu Yun chatted for quite a while. The main point was Lu Yun speaking while Qin Wendian listened. Other than introducing the situation in the Royal Sacred Region, Lu Yun also brought Qin Wendian to those good places where beauties were as common as the clouds. This caused Qin Wendian to be speechless. Half a day later, Qin Wendian and the rest finally arrived at the capital city of Yi. Within the inner city of the ancient country, soldiers clad in resplendent armor could be seen. The towering city gates seemed to be cast from gold, exuding a simple and unadorned aura. This was the core region of Yi, with the royal palace as well as numerous king residences. The security here was extremely tight, and experts were as common as the clouds. Halt! A loud shout rang out as a golden beam of light shot up into the skies. A general wielded a golden long spear, pointing it at those from the battle sword sect. Let's go down. Yi Lingshuang spoke. The group of them descended as many armored soldiers soared up into the air, blocking their path. The general in the lead icily stated, "This is an important place for the royal clan of Yi." Impudent. Yi Lingshuang coldly snorted. At this moment, she retracted her gentle demeanor, exuding an intense aura of imposingness as she icily spoke. "You actually dare to obstruct this princess?" Only now did that guard notice Yi Lingshuang. A cold smile flickered in his eyes. Now that the Qi king was in control, it wouldn't be long before this woman became a prisoner. Yet, she still wanted to act like a princess here. However, this woman was truly beautiful, and since she joined the battle sword sect, they couldn't afford to offend her too much. "So it's Princess Lingshuang. This subordinate has failed in his duty and failed to recognize you. Please forgive me." That general spoke, yet there was no expression of guilt on his face. He turned his gaze onto the others as he spoke. "However, this is an important place for the royal clan. It's not too appropriate for princess to bring a bunch of strangers here." Impudent, this princess brought a few friends here as guests. "How can I allow you to talk so much?" Yi Lingshuang coldly snorted. "Offending your superiors, take him down for me." She was the princess of Yi, yet a mere guard dared to be so impudent. This was an obvious provocation to her authority. Most probably, her royal father's current situation was extremely dire. Thinking of this, Yi Lingshuang grew even more anxious. But as her command rang out, none of the guards moved. Nobody obeyed. Duan Han's hands trembled. His black robes fluttered in the wind as a cold sword light flashed. Instantly, that guard's countenance drastically changed as he stabbed out with his long spear, emitting a brilliant golden light. Puchi. A black-colored sword pierced through the center of his brows. Momentarily, the countenances of the guards drastically changed as they all erupted forth with tyrannical auras. This group of guards were actually all Heavenly Dipper sovereigns. However, Duan Han swept his gaze over. His deep eyes seemed to shoot out numerous sharp swords. Yi Lingshuang naturally understood Duan Han's intentions when she saw his methods. She coldly snorted, "This man offended his superiors, he shall be executed. If there's anyone else who dares to obstruct us, kill them all without mercy." As the sound of her voice faded, the group of guards stepped out. This time around, nobody dared to obstruct them. Those guards stared at the corpse of their commander as their countenances turned ashen. That was an expert at the 7th level of Heavenly Dipper, yet he was killed with a single sword strike. Are the people of the battle sword sect really so tyrannical? Those guards felt their hearts trembling, yet they didn't dare to say anything. They didn't expect Duan Han's methods to be so ruthless, directly killing him without saying a word. The members of the battle sword sect continued on their way. This royal territory was extremely majestic, and there were many king residences here, each of which occupied an area of several hundred miles. Occasionally, there would be powerful experts glancing at them in the air, causing Qin Wentian to have a clearer understanding of how powerful the Yi country was. Most probably, the experts from a single king's residence were sufficient to sweep through the entire Grand Xia Empire, let alone the entire Yi country. Finally, a majestic ancient kingdom appeared before their eyes. There were also towering city walls that seemed to be cast from pure gold. A group of figures walked out from within with smiles on their faces. "Why didn't you inform us beforehand that Princess Lingshuang is returning?" An expert in the lead laughed. However, Yi Lingshuang's countenance was extremely terrifying. This was someone from the Frost King Manor, one of her clan uncles. They actually appeared in the royal palace. From this, one could very well imagine how serious the situation here was. Most probably, the entire royal palace was already under their control. After all, the Frost King was extremely close to the Qi King. "I want to see my royal father," Yi Lingshuang faintly spoke. That expert glanced at the members of the Battle Sword sect beside Yi Lingshuang as he smiled. "The elites of the Battle Sword sect have truly brought light to our humble Yi country. Please enter the royal palace to take a rest." The others didn't bother with him. They came in such an imposing manner and didn't bother to conceal their presence. Given how powerful the Yi country was, they should have long received news of their arrival. The members of the Battle Sword sect directly stepped through the air and entered the royal palace. Right now, in this majestic royal palace, there were armored soldiers everywhere, waiting for their arrival. From this, one could see how tense the situation was. Yi Lingshuang's heart was filled with worry for her father. She sped towards the direction of the Human Emperor Palace, like a gust of wind. Outside the Human Emperor Palace, there were currently many experts gathered here. It was as though all the hegemons of the various powers were gathered here. Yi Lingshuang's gaze swept over as she stared in a certain direction. Over there was a young man with a countenance like lightning. He was clad in royal robes and exuded an extraordinary air of imposingness. His deep eyes seemed to be able to see through people. Not only that, around this young man, there were several other experts of the same generation. All of them were extraordinary and exuded a tyrannical aura. Each and every one of them was an elite among the younger generation, incomparably dazzling. When the gazes of the young men from the Battle Sword sect met with their gazes, a terrifying sharpness permeated the air. Experts from the Violet Thunder sect. Qin Wendian silently mused. There was no need to doubt that the young man in royal robes was none other than the Prince Luyan spoke of. The son of the Qi King, a heavens chosen from the Violet Thunder sect, a demon-level genius of his generation. Those beside him were definitely from the same generation as him from the Violet Thunder sect. If one were to say that the Violet Thunder sect didn't participate in the dark, wanting to allow the Qi King to control the Yi country, no one would believe it. Yi Lingshuang's silhouette flickered as she flew towards the direction of the Human Emperor Palace. However, a group of silhouettes blocked her path. "Princess, the Human Emperor is seriously ill. The Holy Maiden from the Medicine Sovereign Valley is currently treating him. Princess, please don't wait outside. My royal father is seriously ill, how can I not be by his side?" "It's fine." Yi Lingshuang spoke. The people in front could see the determination in her eyes as they opened up a path for her, blocking Duan Han and the others from advancing. "You guys wait here for me." Yi Lingshuang turned her head and spoke to Duan Han and the others. Since they were already in the royal palace, there shouldn't be anyone who would dare to harm Yi Lingshuang in public. Hence, Duan Han and the others would wait here. Chapter 525. Qin Wendian stood in the midst of the Battle Sword sect, quietly immersing himself in the majesty of the ancient country. An ancient country that had existed for over 10,000 years was truly terrifying. Lu Yun told him on the way here that the elimination rate of the major powers in the royal sacred region was extremely high. Occasionally, a few demon-level geniuses would appear, and once they matured, they would be able to topple the entire major power. Hence, many transcendent powers in the royal sacred region would be annihilated in the annals of history. At the same time, there would also be many that would rise up. Like the great waves washing away the sands, those that could remain standing for 10,000 years would all be extremely terrifying. The ancient Yi country was naturally the same. Gazing at the group of young men from the Violet Thunder sect, they were also looking over. The person in the lead should be the son of the Qi King, the demon-level genius of the Violet Thunder sect, Yi Kongfan. His talent was terrifying, possessing a tribulation lightning bloodline and an innate lightning physique that was extremely suitable for the ultimate arts of the Violet Thunder sect. Right now, his cultivation base was already at the 7th level of Heavenly Dipper, and his attacks were even more terrifying. This Yi Kongfan was clad in golden robes, exuding the aura of a king. His resplendent eyes seemed to contain a terrifying sense of danger. At this moment, Yi Kongfan's gaze landed on Duan Han. Staring at his aura, he emotionlessly stated, "The 9th personal disciple of Sword Sovereign Ling Tian, Duan Han. Yi Kong fan. Duan Han similarly stared at him, his black eyes gleaming with sharpness. A sharp smile could be seen in Yi Kongfan's eyes as he glanced at those from the Battle Sword sect. To think that members of the Battle Sword sect would have the time to visit my Yi country as guests. I have to properly entertain all of you. However, I'm sure that members of the Battle Sword sect have no interest in the mundane world and only pursue the path of cultivation. Just nice, I've already invited the Holy Maiden to the battle arena of my Yi country, wanting to witness the atmosphere of martial arts. Now that the members of the Battle Sword sect have arrived, how about we head there together after the Holy Maiden exits? The competition in the royal sacred region was extremely cruel, and the country of Yi was naturally the same. The battle arena was a place where the martial path was held. Those who performed outstandingly would be heavily rewarded by the Yi country and might even be recruited as subordinates. How would we dare to reject the prince's invitation? This Yi Kong fan was the son of the Qi king. Although he was also a heaven chosen of the Violet Thunder sect, the status of the son of the Qi king was naturally more prominent. I heard that the personal disciple of Sword Sovereign Ling Tian is extremely powerful. If he could display his prowess in the battle arena, I'm sure the people of Yi would be extremely excited. A young man from the Violet Thunder sect beside Yi Kong fan spoke, his words causing the eyes of those from the Battle Sword sect to gleam with sharpness. The status of a disciple of the Battle Sword sect was extraordinary. How could they fight against people from Yi in the battle arena? Wouldn't that be damaging their own status? If those from the Violet Thunder sect are willing, we can go up and seek guidance from them. Jiang Huai coldly stated, his words causing the young man from the Violet Thunder sect to laugh coldly. The battle intent radiating from both sides was so intense that it felt as though they would attack at the slightest disagreement. The competition between the 9 great sects was exceedingly intense. This kind of competition could be felt from within the royal sacred sect to outside. Every time they met, there would always be a sense of conflict. This was especially so for those from the Battle Sword sect. Many people in the royal sacred region claimed that although the Battle Sword sect had the lowest number of members, their members were all elites and their individual combat prowess was the strongest. Hence, the disciples of the other 8 great sects naturally weren't willing to accept this. Qin Wendian had already experienced the conflict between the 9 great sects back when he was in Xian King City. Hence, he didn't find it strange at all. At this moment, an old man in long robes walked towards those from the Battle Sword sect as he politely stated, "This old man thanks all of you for protecting the princess back to her country." This old man was a subject of the human emperor's bloodline. When he saw the experts from the Battle Sword sect accompanying Yi Lingshuang over, how could he not understand the intentions of those from the Battle Sword sect? His heart was filled with gratitude. Lingshuang is my junior apprentice sister, this is something that should be done. Old sir, there's no need for you to worry. Duan Han returned the courtesy. An expression of gratitude appeared on the face of the old man as he continued, now that the situation in Yi is unclear, I'll be so bold as to say this. If you were to meet with a calamity, I hope that all of you would be able to protect the princess, preventing her from acting recklessly. Right. Duan Han nodded. Old sir, please don't worry. Since the Holy Maiden of the Medicine Sovereign Valley is willing to treat the human emperor, she would naturally be able to do so. The old man shook his head, his eyes flashing with worry. Evidently, he wasn't too optimistic. The human emperor's illness has already persisted for quite some time. The old man sighed. Duan Han and the rest furrowed their brows. Seems like the human emperor's condition was extremely serious. This old man didn't even have enough confidence in the Holy Maiden of the Medicine Sovereign Valley. Not only that, Yi was an ancient country. Although the royal clan was embroiled in endless disputes, the bloodline of the human emperor was still extremely powerful. Most probably, the human emperor had already invited a powerful alchemist to treat the human emperor. Now that they had no choice but to invite the Holy Maiden of the Medicine Sovereign Valley, they had no choice but to do so. The status of the Medicine Sovereign Valley was transcendent. It was extremely difficult for ordinary people to enter, let alone for the Holy Maiden of the Medicine Sovereign Valley. Most probably, the bloodline of the Yi country had paid a huge price. After waiting outside for a moment, Yiling Shuang finally exited. Her eyes were slightly moist, it was evident that she had been crying. Beside her, there were several beautiful matrons dressed in palace robes, all of them were concubines. There were also 2 young men who resembled her, the princes of Yi. Yi Tan thanks everyone from the Battle Sword sect. This group of people arrived before the Battle Sword sect. The eldest Prince Yi Tan bowed, appearing extremely courteous. Those from the Battle Sword sect were all from the younger generation. The courtesy could be light or heavy, it depended on whether the other party respected it or not. "There's no need to be so polite," Duan Han replied in a light voice. His gaze then turned to Yi Lingshuang as he asked, "Lingshuang, how's the situation?" "Royal father has been inflicted with a slow-acting poison, and the poison has already been in his body for a very long time. This poison is extremely well hidden, and when it erupts, it can claim the life of a supreme expert. In addition to the fact that royal father has just experienced a great battle, the poison has already spread throughout his entire body. Right now, he's in a precarious situation." Yi Lingshuang's voice was hoarse as her eyes reddened. "Even the experts from the Medicine Sovereign Valley have no solution?" Xiao Yu asked. "The Holy Maiden said that she can only temporarily suppress the poison. If we want to cure him." Yi Lingshuang didn't continue, but everyone understood what she meant. Their hearts trembled, this poison was able to claim the life of the human emperor. From this, one could see how terrifying it was. At this moment, another group of silhouettes walked out from the human emperor ancient hall. These silhouettes were all clad in white and were extremely beautiful, resembling celestial maidens. The gazes of everyone turned over. Yi Kongfan and the rest took the lead as he smiled, "Thank you all for your hard work." Qin Wentian similarly inclined his head and stared in that direction, only to see a group of beautiful silhouettes. Most probably, these were the experts from the Medicine Sovereign Valley who were protecting the Holy Maiden. Since they were all females, this was naturally for the sake of taking better care of the Holy Maiden. Following the gazes of the white-robed maidens, another 3 silhouettes appeared. The maidens on the left and right were all extremely beautiful, yet at this moment, their radiance was completely overshadowed. Because the maiden in the center was simply too dazzling. The moment she appeared, it was as though everything in the surroundings had to give way to her, losing their luster. Devastatingly beautiful, capable of toppling empires. Lu Yun's eyes gleamed as he stared at that figure. Not only him, everyone from the Battle Sword sect was also staring at the Holy Maiden. They couldn't find any words to describe the radiance radiating from her. These experts from the Battle Sword sect were all people with strong mental fortitude. But at this instant, they were all in a daze. However, Qin Wentian's heart pounded violently, he even forgot to breathe. After which, a radiant smile blossomed on his face as the huge rock in his heart was finally lifted. Qing Cheng. Qin Wentian inclined his head to the heavens and sighed. After which, his silhouette flickered, akin to a bolt of lightning as he dashed towards the direction of the Holy Maiden. The Holy Maiden of the Medicine Sovereign Valley was actually none other than Mo Qingcheng. Michem. Upon seeing Qin Wentian's silhouette dashing out, the experts from the Battle Sword sect were all stunned. The experts from the Violet Thunder sect abruptly turned and stared at Qin Wentian, their countenances gleaming with a cold light. Impudent. Yi Kongfan coldly snorted. His palms blasted out as terrifying tribulation lightning manifested in the air, blasting towards Qin Wentian. Qin Wentian lifted his palms in response, yet with a thunderous boom, his body was forced back several steps. Intense pain radiated from his palms, the might of that tribulation lightning had actually caused his entire arm to be numb. The maidens from the Medicine Sovereign Valley all coldly stared at Qin Wentian. Cold qi gushed forth, enveloping Qin Wentian as a suppressive pressure bore down on Qin Wentian. It was as though if Qin Wentian made the slightest movement, they would kill him on the spot. Junior brother. The experts from the Battle Sword sect all felt the killing intent. Their silhouettes flickered as they rushed forward, protecting Qin Wentian. However, Qin Wentian's gaze was only focused on Mo Qingcheng. It was as though he had forgotten everything else. Mo Qingcheng was still alive. What else in this world could be more beautiful than this? His smile was still as radiant as ever as he stared at the holy maiden who was the center of attention. The holy maiden from the Medicine Sovereign Valley stared at Qin Wentian. The instant his silhouette entered her vision, she felt an intense pain in her heart. Staring at Qin Wentian, her aura was as distant as ever, as though no one could get close to her. She was so dazzling, yet so foreign at the same time. How impudent! Seeing that you are a member of the Battle Sword sect, I temporarily won't bother with you. But if there's a next time, I will kill you without mercy. Yi Kongfan coldly snorted. After which, he spoke, Holy Maiden, let's head to the battle arena now. Mo Qingcheng's silhouette froze there for a moment before she lifted her foot and departed. Those from the Violet Thunder sect all had cold smiles on their faces as they stared at Qin Wentian. Restrain yourself, that's the Holy Maiden of the Medicine Sovereign Valley. A young man from the Violet Thunder sect coldly snorted. Even those from the Battle Sword sect were unhappy. Qin Wentian was simply too impulsive, not caring about his image at all. Qin Wentian stood there in a daze. That smile was still on his face, yet another bolt from the blue struck him. Mo Qingcheng didn't recognize him. What was going on? Mo Qingcheng was in the center of attention as she strolled around the royal palace. However, the two people beside her only saw Mo Qingcheng clutching her chest as a dazed expression appeared on her face. It was as though she was in extreme pain. Holy Maiden, what's wrong? A girl beside her asked in a low voice. His face is so familiar. My heart is in so much pain, Mo Qingcheng mumbled, her words causing the countenances of the two beside her to stiffen. Back then, Mo Qingcheng's life was in danger and she was saved by the Medicine Sovereign. However, her memories were blurry and other than her instinctive cultivation, she had forgotten everything else. They didn't say anything, but they had never seen such an expression on Mo Qingcheng's face before. It was as though she had lost her soul, her countenance was pale white. Mo Qingcheng felt the pain in her heart intensifying as beads of cold sweat appeared on her forehead. How familiar, how familiar. She wanted to recall something. My head hurts so much. Mo Qingcheng closed her eyes. Unknowingly, tears actually flowed down from the corners of her eyes. It was as though a bolt from the blue had struck her mind. Winter, snowflakes filled the air. A young man sat under a tree, looking handsome yet in a daze. He had no idea what the young girl beside him was thinking. The snowflakes were extremely beautiful. The two of them sat under the tree, staring at the ancient tree that was covered in snow. Innocent smiles could be seen on the faces of the young girl beside him. The young girl stretched her hands out, catching the falling snowflakes. Calling him a Dumbo, she then departed with a smile on her face. This scene was so beautiful that it broke the hearts of those who saw it. Holy Maiden. At this moment, the two beside her turned pale with fright. When they saw Mo Qingcheng opening her eyes, her face was actually filled with tears. Chapter 526. The maidens from the Medicine Sovereign Valley halted their steps because their holy maiden had also stopped, standing there motionlessly. Many turned their heads to look at the holy maiden as their countenances changed. One of the beautiful maidens even glanced at the two maidens beside her. What happened to the holy maiden? She simply couldn't imagine that the beautiful face of the holy maiden was actually filled with tears. What had happened? I don't know. The two maidens beside her were also flustered. But from the holy maiden's words, it seems that she has recalled something. The eyes of the maidens from the Medicine Sovereign Valley all flashed with sharpness. How powerful was the Medicine Sovereign? Although the holy maiden was heavily injured and her life was hanging by a thread, he still managed to save her and even granted her a chance to be reborn. The Medicine Sovereign had also said that the holy maiden's memories might be a little blurry temporarily, but once she suffered an intense impact, she would recover sooner or later. Could it be that the Holy Maiden was about to recall her past memories? But when did she suffer an intense impact? They had always been following beside the Holy Maiden, and nothing had happened. The only unexpected incident was when that young man rushed to the side of the Holy Maiden. For such a minor matter, they wouldn't even care about it. Naturally, they wouldn't have thought that this would be the so-called intense impact. Their Holy Maiden still stood there, as though she had lost her soul. Her tears flowed unceasingly, and her hands were clutching her chest. At this moment, no one dared to disturb her. Michem. The eyes of Yi Kong Fan and the rest gleamed with sharpness. They were all stunned by this scene. What had happened to this beautiful maiden? Nobody knew what had happened to Mo Qingcheng. It was as though a bolt of lightning flashed through her mind as the face of that young man appeared unceasingly in her mind. The first time they met in the dark forest, she had saved a young man, yet she had silently left without acknowledging him. The second time they met, was in the royal capital of Chu. At that time, the Emperor's Star Academy and the other martial academies were recruiting students. She was sitting in a sedan, and after a brief glance, she smiled sweetly at him. And after that, during the training of the Dark Forest Martial Academy, she had misunderstood him. Her heart was filled with intense guilt. Scenes after scenes flashed unceasingly in her mind, all the way until the Junlin banquet. The youth of the past had already grown up, and his wanton and unrestrained silhouette gradually imprinted itself into her heart. Gradually, she started to feel the feeling of love. That feeling was truly beautiful and sweet. She constantly thought about it, longed for it. But in the end, he still managed to find her. For her, he traversed across boundless territories, killing Hua Xiaoyun of the Hua clan. For her, he was incomparably arrogant on the heavenly fate-ranking battle platform, holding her hand, telling the world that she was his woman. At that moment, it was as though the entire world belonged to her. She would never be able to forget the resolute look in his eyes when countless gazes turned to look at her. It was as though he was announcing to the world that even if he had to become enemies with the entire world, he would still hold her hand tightly. Her tears stained her robes. Nobody knew what the Holy Maiden had experienced, what she recalled, what memories caused her heart to ache so much. Mo Qingcheng clutched her chest, it was truly painful. She thought back to the final scene. Qin Wendian sacrificed his blood to the demon sword, transforming into a great rock and splitting the entire Pil Emperor Hall apart, all for the sake of saving her. She thought back to the scene where he was surrounded by countless experts, and was heavily injured by a celestial phenomenon ascendant. How could she forget this? How could she forget everything? Abruptly, the spectators only saw Mo Qingcheng turning and madly sprinting back the way she came. Her snow-white robes fluttered in the wind as her tears flowed unceasingly down her cheeks, dripping onto the ground. Holy Maiden. Those from the Medicine Sovereign Valley and the Violet Thunder sect all turned pale with fright as they chased after Mo Qingcheng. What exactly happened? Why did things turn out like this? Mo Qingcheng had experienced life all over again, and the pain in her heart was so deep that it pierced through her heart. But when Qin Wendian saw Mo Qingcheng walking past him, he also felt an intense pain in his heart. How could this be? Qingcheng actually didn't remember him. But when he thought of the scene where Qingcheng's life hung by a thread, he understood. He didn't blame her. Wasn't it already a blessing from the heavens that Qingcheng was still alive? Once, he was so afraid that she would leave him forever. But now, he once again saw that silhouette that he couldn't forget. This could already be considered a beautiful ending. Even if she didn't remember him, he still believed in Mo Qingcheng. He believed that she didn't do this intentionally. She must have forgotten something because of her heavy injuries. But he also believed that Qingcheng would definitely remember him. As he thought of this, a radiant smile appeared on Qin Wendian's face. Inclining his head, he stared at the sky. The sunlight cascaded down on his face, causing him to feel extremely comfortable. Being alive was the best, wasn't it? Junior brother, you have truly broadened the horizons of your senior brother. Although the Holy Maiden's beauty can topple empires, you can't just rush up to her like that. Lu Yun patted Qin Wentian's shoulder as he stared at Qin Wentian with a look of worship in his eyes. Junior brother, you are too impulsive. The status of the Holy Maiden of the Medicine Sovereign Valley is extraordinary. As disciples of the Battle Sword sect, we should at least pay attention to our image. Xiao Yu persuaded. This Qin Wentian's actions were indeed a little too impulsive. Qin Wentian nodded his head lightly. He didn't explain anything, and a faint smile could be seen on his face. Yiling Shuang stared at Qin Wentian speechlessly. It was one thing for this fellow to be lecherous, but why was he acting like this at such a time? The Holy Maiden was here to save her father. What would happen to her father if she offended those from the Medicine Sovereign Valley? Junior brother Qin, in the future, can you control your emotions for the sake of helping me? Yiling Shuang couldn't blame Qin Wentian. After all, he was escorting her back to Yi together with the Battle Sword sect. She could only persuade him. Senior sister, it's all my fault. Qin Wentian could understand Yiling Shuang. Her father's life might be in danger at any moment, and the people from the Medicine Sovereign Valley were her only hope. If he were to offend those from the Medicine Sovereign Valley because of a moment of rashness, Yiling Shuang naturally didn't want to see that. Thank you junior brother Qin for understanding me. Yiling Shuang softly spoke. Qin Wentian shook his head. There were several experts from Yi around him, and among them, there were some from the human emperor's faction. Their gazes were filled with unfriendliness, and as for those from the Qi King's faction, all of them had mocking smiles on their faces. Most probably, they were mocking him for not knowing what was good for him. Qing Cheng. Sighing silently in his heart, Qin Wentian turned and spoke. Didn't those from the Violet Thunder sect say that they were going to the battle arena? Let's go. Everyone turned and headed in the direction of the battle arena. Yiling Shuang also accompanied them. As for the human emperor, he was taken care of by the various royal concubines. But at this moment, their gazes suddenly froze as they stood rooted to the spot. In front of them, a flawlessly beautiful silhouette was rushing over. Her countenance was so beautiful that it could topple empires. Just a single glance at her caused the hearts of those who saw her to shatter. The Holy Maiden of the Medicine Sovereign Valley. Everyone was stunned. What was going on? The Holy Maiden was actually crying in such a heartbroken manner, rushing over here. Qin Wentian was also stunned. But very swiftly after, a smile appeared on his face. He saw that Mo Qingqing was currently looking in his direction. Mo Qingqing halted her steps and stood in front of the crowd. She lowered her head slightly, wanting to use her hands to wipe away her tears but to no avail. When she inclined her head, her tears were still flowing down unceasingly. Yet beneath her tears, a flawless smile could be seen. Such a beauty not only caused the men from the Battle Sword sect to be stunned, even Yiling Shuang was deeply shocked. Qin Wentian took a step forward, walking to the side of Mo Qingqing. He stretched out his hand and placed it on Mo Qingqing's face, wiping away her tears as he smiled. Don't cry anymore, you've already become a big tabby cat. His voice was extremely gentle. Although Mo Qingqing was smiling after hearing his words, she had no way to stop her tears. After which, she rushed forward once again and actually leaped into Qin Wentian's embrace, hugging him tightly as though she was afraid to lose him again. Those from the Battle Sword sect were completely stunned. They rubbed their eyes, feeling that this was all a dream. Lu Yun's mouth was so wide open as though he had just seen a ghost. He gulped down his saliva as he cursed in a low voice, "Which bastard is using an illusion technique?" Yiling Shuang's heart pounded violently. She simply didn't dare to believe her own eyes. The Holy Maiden of the Medicine Sovereign Valley was actually acting like a little girl, leaping into Qin Wentian's embrace. What was happening to this world? Holy Maiden. When those from the Medicine Sovereign Valley arrived, they were also stunned by the scene before them. It was as though they had been struck by lightning. All of them were as dumbstruck as wooden chickens as they stared at the Holy Maiden leaping into the embrace of the young man. That tear-stained face, was it because of him? That heart-wrenching pain, was it because of him? That intense feeling the medicine sovereign spoke of, was it because of a single glance at him in the midst of a sea of people? Their minds were in a state of chaos, they had no way to imagine what kind of feeling this was. Their holy maiden and this young man in front of them, did they have an unforgettable relationship? In that case, the impulsiveness of this young man earlier wasn't because of the holy maiden's beauty, but because she was his lover. When those from the Violet Thunder sect arrived, all of their countenances turned ashen. They had some feelings for Mo Qingcheng, but they didn't expect things to turn out like this. Especially Yikong Fan, as a heaven's chosen of the Violet Thunder sect, the prince of Yi country, the future crown prince, he wanted to take this opportunity to gain the affection of the holy maiden of the Medicine Sovereign Valley and take Mo Qingcheng down. But now, the scene before him had completely shattered his plans. Even a fool could tell that not only did the two of them know each other, they were a pair of lovers. However, how could the holy maiden fall in love with him? How could he be worthy of the holy maiden of the Medicine Sovereign Valley? As he thought of this, a cold light flickered in Yikong Fan's eyes. I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. Mo Qingcheng kept repeating these 3 words. She hated herself, she actually forgot about him. How could she forget him? Even now, she had no way to forgive herself, she hated herself. Qingcheng, don't be like this. Qin Wentian could feel the guilt in Mo Qingcheng's voice as his heart trembled. How could he not feel that he owed Qingcheng something? Mo Qingcheng nodded her head, yet she still hugged Qin Wentian tightly. It was as though in this world, only the two of them were left. It was as though the others didn't exist. Chapter 527. The two of them hugged each other tightly, causing the others to be stunned speechless. They gradually understood that the holy maiden of the Medicine Sovereign Valley and Qin Wentian must have had a very deep relationship. It was rumored that the holy maiden of the Medicine Sovereign Valley was sent to the Medicine Sovereign Valley when she was on the verge of death. What exactly happened at that time, this young man from the Battle Sword sect should know. So the name of the holy maiden of the Medicine Sovereign Valley is Qingcheng. What a pity, what a pity. Lu Yun sighed in sorrow. What are you lamenting about? Xiao Yu glared at this fellow. I'm sighing because she didn't meet this young master first. Lu Yun was incomparably vexed, causing the others to roll their eyes. This bastard was truly an extreme character. However, Yiling Shuang had another thought in her mind. The holy maiden of the Medicine Sovereign Valley was actually Qin Wentian's lover. In that case, if Qin Wentian was willing to help her, the holy maiden would definitely do her best to treat her father's poison. She might even invite even more powerful experts from the Medicine Sovereign Valley to help. At that time, there might really be hope for her father. The Medicine Sovereign Valley was a transcendent existence. There were some supreme existences that even the Yi country couldn't invite. It was basically impossible to locate them. However, the holy maiden of the Medicine Sovereign Valley would definitely know where they were. Qin Wentian and Mo Qingcheng separated. Mo Qingcheng stared at Qin Wentian's countenance as her gentle hands gently caressed Qin Wentian's face. She stared at Qin Wentian's body, as though she was afraid that Qin Wentian would lose a piece of flesh. When she thought of what Qin Wentian had to endure in the Pill Emperor Hall, she started crying again. There were thousands and thousands of words she wanted to say, but she didn't know where to start. Once again, she leaned into Qin Wentian's embrace. The people from the Medicine Sovereign Valley didn't know what they were feeling. Their holy maiden at this moment had completely transformed into a little woman, so gentle and exquisite. That gaze of hers was enough to melt the hearts of all the men in the world. What kind of deep love was that? All of them wanted to know, what was the story between the holy maiden and this young man from the Battle Sword sect? Pill Emperor Hall, I thought we would all die. Mo Qingcheng sobbed softly. Never in her wildest dreams would she have thought that they would still be alive, and that there would be a day where they could reunite. Mo Qingcheng's tear-stained face was filled with a smile. She was truly happy, she had never been so happy before. She felt that every strand of air was so fresh, and every ray of sunlight was so beautiful. It's all in the past now. Whatever the Pill Emperor Hall has done to you, I will make them pay for it sooner or later. The obsession in Qin Wentian's heart was exceedingly deep. The Pill Emperor Hall was like a thorn in his heart. Sooner or later, he would pull this thorn out, causing the Pill Emperor Hall to vanish from this world. Every time he thought of how the Pill Emperor Hall actually used Mo Qingqing's life to nurture corpses, he would feel a wave of pain in his heart. He almost thought that he had lost his lover. Meeting her today made him feel even more beautiful. After separating once again, Qin Wentian stared into Mo Qingqing's eyes, as though he couldn't get enough of her. Mo Qingqing's tears turned into a smile, and this smile of hers caused Qin Wentian's heart to be intoxicated. Holy Maiden. Behind her, those from the Medicine's Sovereign Valley called out. Mo Qingqing turned back, and when she faced the crowd, she reverted back to her cold and lofty self, causing people to feel a sense of distance. She was so resplendent, causing people to feel as though she was unreachable. Yet at this moment, the eyes of the Holy Maiden flickered with a blissful smile. This was the first time the people from the Medicine's Sovereign Valley saw such a side to the Holy Maiden. They couldn't help but sigh in their hearts. Seems like no one could stop the Holy Maiden's love for this young man from the Battle Sword sect. Given how much the Medicine Sovereign doted on her, he would definitely accommodate her. However, they weren't that happy in their hearts. Although Qin Wentian was a disciple of the Battle Sword sect, he was after all just an ordinary disciple. Although his demeanor was extraordinary, his cultivation base wasn't that high. This time around, he wasn't the leader of the group. And Mo Qingqing was the Holy Maiden of their Medicine's Sovereign Valley, the most dazzling maiden of them all. Initially, they thought that even if the Holy Maiden found her lover, he would at least be someone whose name shook the entire world, a supreme genius. Hence, when they saw Qin Wentian, they couldn't help but feel a trace of pity in their hearts. Although they wouldn't say anything, they couldn't help but feel uncomfortable. Ever since they entered the Yi country, Yi Kongfan's attitude towards the Holy Maiden was clear for all to see. Yi Kongfan was a heaven's chosen of the Violet Thunder sect and had an extremely high status. He had a tribulation lightning bloodline and an innate lightning physique. At such a young age, he was already at the 7th level of Heavenly Dipper. But even if such a person was matched up with the Holy Maiden, they still felt that it was insufficient. Only those few famous characters in the royal sacred region were qualified to be in a relationship with the Holy Maiden. However, Qin Wentian and Mo Qingqing had no idea what they were thinking. Even if they knew, why would they care? Junior brother Qin, your senior brother truly admires you. Lu Yun walked up and spoke. Since the Holy Maiden is your girlfriend, it's easier to talk. Do you want to introduce a few fairies to your senior brother? Your skin is truly thick, Xiao Yu speechlessly replied. Her words caused Qin Wentian to laugh. Isn't senior sister Ling Shuang beautiful? Why must you give up what's close at hand and seek what's far away? Junior sister doesn't like me at all. Lu Yun spoke in agony, his words causing those from the royal clan to be dumbfounded. They silently mused that this senior brother of the princess was truly a weirdo. Oh yeah, since the Holy Maiden is your girlfriend, does that mean junior sister Qing Er has any relationship with you? Lu Yun finally revealed his true intentions. He actually had designs on Qing Er. At this moment, he was thinking that this bastard Qin Wentian already had a Holy Maiden whose beauty could topple empires. Could it be that he still wanted to keep that ice lotus for himself? Wouldn't that be too much of a beast? Don't blame me for not reminding you. Qing Er's cultivation base is at the peak of the 6th level of Heavenly Dipper, and her mandate of space has already reached the perfection boundary. Senior brother, you should go and pursue her. Qin Wentian laughed. He was thinking that if Lu Yun dared to have any designs on Qing Er, what sort of miserable ending would he have? Lu Yun shivered. The gazes of those from the Battle Sword sect froze as well. That iceberg maiden who didn't like to speak, was actually so powerful. Everyone, the preparations for the battle arena have already been completed. Why don't we head there together to take a look? At this moment, Yi Kongfan's voice rang out. Although he was extremely unhappy in his heart, a smile still hung on his face, concealing his emotions well. Mo Qingcheng was still holding on to Qin Wentian's hand. She stared at Qin Wentian as an expression of inquiry appeared on her face. "Let's go and take a look." Qin Wentian laughed. Mo Qingcheng nodded her head in agreement as well. The rest of them then proceeded in the direction of the battle arena of the ancient nations. The competition in the royal sacred region was extremely cruel. Hence, the major powers were all fond of martial arts. Yi was the same as well. The battle arena of the Yi country was one of the most important places in the Yi country. It was extremely vast, filled with people as far as the eye could see. Within the battle arena, there were a total of 12 battle platforms. The battles on the 12 platforms would never cease, and every day, there would be countless people contending for supremacy on the platforms, striving for consecutive victories and obtaining rewards from the Yi country. There were even some who were recruited by the Yi country. Not only for the Yi country, there were also many major powers in the Yi country that would gather here. They would similarly throw out olive branches to those with outstanding performances in the battle arena, hoping to recruit them into their sections. Naturally, there would also be occasional conflicts between the disciples of these major powers, which would also be resolved in the battle arena. In the middle of the vast battle arena, there was a pathway leading to the best seats in the spectator stands. There were armored guards on both sides of the pathway, and those who weren't members of the royal clan weren't allowed to sit there. At this moment, a row of silhouettes appeared on the pathway. Instantly, the spectators in the battle arena all inclined their heads, and there were even countless people who stood up. At this moment, the entire battle arena turned silent. They had already heard the news that today, the son of the Qi king, Yi Kongfan from the Violet Thunder sect, would be inviting the Holy Maiden of the Medicine Sovereign Valley to the battle arena. This group of people all exuded an extraordinary aura. This was especially so for that beautiful maiden whose beauty could topple empires. She should be none other than the Holy Maiden of the Medicine Sovereign Valley. In front of the Medicine Sovereign Valley, there was a group of young men leading the way. The one in the middle exuded the noblest aura, clad in royal robes, and was none other than the crown prince of the Qi king, Yi Kongfan. The armored guards on both sides knelt on one knee as they respectfully called out, "We pay our respects to the Crown Prince, and welcome the Holy Maiden of the Medicine Sovereign Valley." Their voices shook the heavens and earth, akin to heavenly thunder. This caused countless people to turn their gazes onto Yi Kongfan and the Holy Maiden, Mo Qingcheng, as they viewed the two of them together. These two were truly a pair of absolute geniuses. If they could get together, it would surely become a beautiful story. Rise. Today, I've invited the Holy Maiden here to admire the magnificent scenery of the battle arena of my Yi country. I hope that the young elites of my Yi country will be able to display their brilliance, displaying the magnificence of the martial path of my Yi country. Yi Kongfan's voice reverberated throughout the entire arena. At this moment, the eyes of those from the human emperor clan beside Yi Lingshuang flickered with coldness. Yi Lingshuang's brows were tightly furrowed, appearing extremely unhappy. Kneeling to the crown prince but not to the princess. Qin Wentian stood beside Mo Qingcheng. He glanced at the seats in front of him. Two of the most distinguished seats were naturally reserved for him and Mo Qingcheng by Yi Kongfan, while the other two seats were reserved for him and Mo Qingcheng. Qin Wentian furrowed his brows as a cold light flickered in his eyes. This Yi Kongfan was putting in so much effort to create such a commotion, suppressing the host. Firstly, it was to emphasize his status. Where did he place the real princess of Yi Lingshuang? Secondly, it was to create a commotion for him and Mo Qingcheng, making others feel as though they were a pair of absolute geniuses, creating a misconception that they were plotting something. The vast crowd in the arena also noticed Qin Wentian, who was beside Mo Qingcheng. Although the Holy Maiden was being protected, there was actually a young man beside her. How could the crowd not be suspicious as they silently speculated about his identity? An extremely strange scene appeared in the arena. The spectators were all staring in this direction, while Yi Kongfan and the others also halted their steps. Everyone was waiting to see how Yi Kongfan would arrange the seats. "Holy Maiden, please. Indeed, Yi Kongfan stretched his hand out, gesturing for Mo Qingqing to sit on one of the two most valuable seats. If Mo Qingqing sat down, he would definitely sit beside her. Mo Qingqing furrowed her brows. Although she wasn't a scheming person, she naturally understood Yi Kongfan's intentions. If she sat down and Yi Kongfan sat beside her, where would Qin Wendian be placed? This was something she couldn't accept. Chapter 528. When Qin Wendian saw Yi Kongfan taking the initiative to invite him, the coldness in his eyes grew even more intense. He then spoke, "Princess Lingshuang is the host, it's only right for her to take a seat first." As soon as he finished speaking, the atmosphere suddenly became subtle. Today, Yi Kongfan's original intention was to usurp the host's position, intentionally causing Yi Lingshuang to lose face. But now that Qin Wendian allowed Yi Lingshuang to sit, didn't this mean that he would have to sit beside Yi Lingshuang? Yi Kongfan's eyes flashed with an undetectable coldness. He inclined his head and stared at Qin Wendian, only to hear Mo Qingqing saying, "Princess, please go ahead first." The soldiers on both sides exuded an oppressive aura, as a faint killing intent permeated the air. These soldiers were all extremely powerful. Clearly, this was arranged by Yi Kongfan long ago. But at this moment, Mo Qingqing also asked Yi Lingshuang to sit, causing Yi Kongfan to be placed in a difficult position. "Since the Holy Maiden is so polite, Princess, please take a seat first, lest the Holy Maiden has to wait there." Those beside Yi Lingshuang naturally urged Yi Lingshuang to take a seat. How could they weaken the prestige of the royal clan? Now that they had the help of Qin Wendian and the Holy Maiden from the Medicine Sovereign Valley, it was naturally for the best. If not, if Yi Kongfan really sat on the throne, Yi Lingshuang wouldn't be able to remain here. Yi Lingshuang stared at Yi Kongfan. After which, she lifted her feet and walked towards one of the main seats. At this moment, she could clearly feel the pressure boring down on her. But as the princess of Yi, she had to bear the pressure. No matter what, she couldn't allow the Qi King to have his way. A cold wind gusted by, the atmosphere here was extremely strange. Everyone could feel it. Yi Lingshuang walked down step by step. Yi Kongfan's eyes flickered and finally, he smiled as he spoke, "Princess, please." As the sound of Yi Kongfan's voice faded, the pressure on Yi Kongfan instantly dissipated as though everything had returned to normal. This caused Yi Lingshuang to feel even more shock in her heart. Yi Kongfan's control over the situation had far surpassed her expectations. Sitting on the host's seat, Yi Lingshuang turned her head and smiled at Mo Qingqing, "Holy Maiden, please be seated. Sit beside me." Mo Qingqing smiled at Qin Wendian who was beside her as she sat down. Qin Wendian sat beside her, while Yi Kongfan sat one seat below Yi Lingshuang. The others all sat down as well, and only then did the atmosphere here relax. "Holy Maiden, there's a total of 12 battle platforms in the Yi country's battle arena. You can challenge each other or challenge the warriors of our Yi country. There are experts of all cultivation realms on these 12 battle platforms, and everyone has a chance to display their strength, becoming the center of attention." In the history of the Yi country, there were countless people who rose to fame after a single battle, and there were even some who became the pillars of the Yi country. Yi Kongfan smiled as he introduced to Mo Qingqing. Mo Qingqing's countenance was emotionless as she stared downwards. The battles on the battle platforms were extremely intense, and there were indeed many outstanding characters. In fact, the combat prowess of the experts in the middle arena seemed to be exceptionally strong. The 3 battle platforms in the middle are the 10 victories battle platform, the 50 victories battle platform, and the 100 victories battle platform. Only those who won 10, 50, and 100 battles consecutively would have the qualifications to fight on those 3 battle platforms. Those 3 battle platforms would attract the most attention. Yi Kongfan noticed Mo Qingqing's gaze as he explained. Although Yi Lingshuang sat on the host's seat, it was as though he was the master of this place. The combat prowess of those on the 100 victories battle platform are all extremely powerful, but sometimes, demon-level characters would appear. Not only would they be able to ascend to the 100 Victories battle platform, they would even dare to jump levels and challenge the other participants. Such characters would be directly recruited by our royal clan. Yi Lingshuang introduced to Mo Qingcheng. The Yi country has existed for 10,000 years, and the spirit of martial arts is truly admirable. Mo Qingcheng replied, her words causing a look of surprise to flash past Yi Lingshuang's eyes. Before this, she had heard that the holy maiden of the Medicine's sovereign valley was cold and arrogant, silent and taciturn. Regardless of nobility or when the princess consort spoke to her, she wouldn't bother with them at all. However, no one dared to have any objections. After all, her status was special and she had a country-toppling beauty akin to a celestial maiden. But at this moment, Mo Qingcheng was actually willing to chat with her. Yi Lingshuang knew that even though she was a princess, she didn't have that much face. The only possibility was that this was because of her junior apprentice brother, Qin Wentian. Seems like this holy maiden of the Medicine Sovereign Valley's feelings for her junior apprentice brother Qin Wentian weren't ordinary. If not, she wouldn't have thought of him for so many things. This made her feel that the life and death of her royal father, Qin Wentian, depended on Qin Wentian. Junior brother Qin, a few days ago, you suddenly followed senior brother Lin Shuai into the battle sword sect. Not only that, you were even accompanied by the elders of the sect. I'm really curious, where did you come from exactly? Senior brother Lin Shuai clearly has high hopes for you. Yi Lingshuang stared in the direction of Qin Wentian, as did Mo Qingcheng. She had many questions she wanted to ask Qin Wentian, but right now, there were too many people around and it wasn't convenient for her to do so. Qin Wentian naturally understood their thoughts. He smiled and replied, back then during the battle at the Pill Emperor Hall, you should know that I was heavily injured. It was Qin who helped me, allowing me to regain my human form. After that, Grand Xia fell into chaos and I established my own power, destroying the Great Qin clan. However, I was also heavily injured. Sadly, I didn't manage to destroy the Pill Emperor Hall. After that, I roamed the world and came to the Xian King city of Grand Shang. By a stroke of good fortune, I coincidentally encountered the recruitment of the 9 great sections. It was at that time that I was brought to the Battle Swords sect by senior brother Lin Shuai and the others. The others didn't really understand what Qin Wentian meant when he said that he had regained his human form. But how could Mo Qingcheng not understand? Although Qin Wentian spoke in such a calm tone, it was clear that he had experienced many storms in his life. Yet, she actually wasn't by his side. In that case, the person flaunting his might in Xian King City was none other than you. An expert from the Violet Thunder sect coldly snorted as he stared at Qin Wentian, causing the gazes of the crowd to turn to him. A few days ago, the Battle Sword sect caused quite a commotion when they went to Xian King City. All the 9 great sects sent people there, including one of my martial uncles from the Violet Thunder sect. During the battle at the Xian King Manor, there was one person who was exceptionally arrogant and even killed several members of my Violet Thunder sect. After that, he was forcefully brought away by the Battle Sword sect. That person didn't know the details, he only heard his fellow disciples discussing this matter. At that time, he hated himself for not being in Xian King City. Who would have thought that he would encounter that person here? Those from the Violet Thunder sect were already extremely unhappy with Qin Wentian. Now that they heard of this matter, their eyes flashed with coldness as a faint pressure gushed towards Qin Wentian. Qin Wentian's eyes flickered, he could see the killing intent in his opponent's eyes. He icily replied, on the battle platform, life and death are determined by fate. The Violet Thunder sect wanted to kill me, yet they died in my hands. They were useless. As the sound of his voice faded, the eyes of the crowd flickered with coldness as their battle intent intensified. Qin Wentian actually said that the Violet Thunder sect was useless and deserved to die. This was simply smacking their faces. Boasting shamelessly. Beside the 100 Victories battle platform, there are many people who have obtained 100 victories. If you have the strength, do you want to challenge them? That expert from the Violet Thunder sect stared at Qin Wentian, his eyes flashing with lightning. Who the hell do you think you are? Do the disciples of my battle sword sect need to use the Yi country to prove themselves? Don't forget that back then on the sacred battle platform of the royal sacred region, your Violet Thunder sect was like a stray dog. A young man from the battle sword sect mocked. In the royal sacred region, the atmosphere of martial arts wasn't only limited to the Yi country. It was the entire sacred region. In the entire royal sacred region, the sacred battle platform was undoubtedly the highest. On the sacred battle platform, the various transcendent powers of the royal sacred region would often contend against each other. Even the disciples of the 9 great sects would often fight on it. Once, when the disciples of the 9 great sects contended on the sacred battle platform, the battle sword sect was the strongest. Hence, the combat prowess of the battle sword sect had always been the strongest. For those supreme geniuses whose names shook the entire royal sacred region, many of them were also famous on the sacred battle platform. They were unrivaled among those on the same cultivation level, and were even invincible when fighting against those at a higher cultivation level. They could be said to be true absolute geniuses, sweeping through all their opponents. When this person mentioned the sacred battle platform, it caused many from the Medicine Sovereign Valley to recall those supreme geniuses. Yi Kong Fan from the Violet Thunder sect, Shang Tong from the Grand Shang Empire, none of them belonged to the category of absolute geniuses. In the eyes of these people from the Medicine Sovereign Valley, only those characters were worthy of their holy maiden. These words were undoubtedly a provocation to the Violet Thunder sect. The experts from the Violet Thunder sect all radiated a powerful battle intent as they stared at Qin Wendian and the person who spoke. If you have the guts, you can go up and spar with me. Qin Wendian swept his gaze over. The people from the Violet Thunder sect had provoked him time and time again, and Yi Kong Fan even lusted after Mo Qingcheng. Even a clay figurine would have anger, let alone someone like him. He stared at the person who spoke. His cultivation base was at the 5th level of Heavenly Dipper. An expression of disdain involuntarily flashed in his eyes as he stated, "You are not qualified to fight against me, Qin." You. That person was infuriated, pointing his finger at Qin Wendian. No matter what, he was a genius from the Violet Thunder sect. How arrogant was he? Yet Qin Wendian actually had such a disdainful expression on his face. However, his state of heart was also extraordinary. He instantly suppressed his anger as he mocked, "To think that the people from the battle sword sect are all cowards. Don't be rude. Does my battle sword sect need to prove anything to your Violet Thunder sect?" Lu Yun drank a mouthful of wine as a look of disdain appeared on his face. "Those from the battle sword sect are our guests, don't be rude." Yi Kong Fan faintly spoke. Only then did that person coldly laugh, "You're right, we shouldn't let our guests lose too much face. Let alone in front of the Holy Maiden." However, given how graceful the Holy Maiden of the Medicine Sovereign Valley is, I always thought that the companion of the Holy Maiden would be a heaven chosen of the younger generation. Who would have thought that? That person shook his head as he sighed, "What a pity." Killing intent flickered in Qin Wendian's eyes when he heard this. However, he only saw Mo Qingcheng lightly pulling his hand. Turning his head, Qin Wendian only saw Mo Qingcheng smiling gently at him. Evidently, Mo Qingcheng wouldn't care about the words and gazes of others. In her heart, Qin Wendian was once unrivaled in Grand Xia. Now, in the royal sacred region, he would also rise above the rest sooner or later. Not only that, even if Qin Wendian was a mediocre person, so what of it? He was still the person she loved the most. Turning her gaze over, Mo Qingcheng stared at those from the Violet Thunder sect as a cold glint of light flickered in her eyes. These people wanted to drive a wedge between her and Qin Wendian, insulting Qin Wendian with their words. Yet, they didn't know that they had violated a great taboo, truly angering her. "Princess, before the injuries of the human emperor recover, I will continue to stay here. In addition, I will send someone to seek help from the seniors from the Medicine Sovereign Valley. I can only trouble Princess for a little longer." Mo Qingcheng glanced at Yiling Shuang as she spoke. As the sound of her voice faded, Yiling Shuang was overjoyed. Her heart pounded as she replied, "Why would Holy Maiden say such words? If this is the case, Ling Shuang will be eternally grateful. The entire Yi country will be grateful to Holy Maiden for your kindness. At this moment, Yi Ling Shuang's heart was filled with shock. Seems like she had still underestimated Qin Wentian's position in Mo Qingqing's heart. Yi Kongfan's countenance was extremely unsightly to behold. He glanced at the person who spoke earlier, his eyes filled with a bone-piercing coldness. His words of provocation towards Qin Wentian had caused Mo Qingqing to make up her mind to help the human emperor. How could Yi Kongfan not understand? There was no longer any hope for him to pursue the Holy Maiden. Chapter 529. Mo Qingqing's words caused the atmosphere to grow even more tense. Those from the Violet Thunder sect all felt resentment in their hearts, they wanted nothing more than to fight against those from the Battle Sword sect. These disciples of the Battle Sword sect were all arrogant and had their eyes on the top of their heads. They didn't even place the other 9 great sects in their eyes. Although there were grudges between the 9 great sects, the ones they hated the most were none other than those from the Battle Sword sect. This man is truly powerful. His cultivation base is only at the 5th level of Heavenly Dipper, yet his combat prowess is so terrifying. At this moment, Yi Ling Shuang spoke, breaking the silence. She turned her gaze onto the platform, only to see an expert whose entire body glowed with a golden light. Of course he's powerful. This man cultivates the invulnerable golden body, his defense is immensely strong and when he attacks, runic light illuminates the skies. Yi Kongfan laughed. This man has already won 100 victories today, yet he still can't find a match for him. The spectators all had strange expressions on their faces when they heard Yi Kongfan's words. It seemed that Yi Kongfan was extremely familiar with this man. This man has already joined the Qi King Manor. And indeed, a person beside Yi Kongfan spoke. Does anyone from the Battle Sword sect wish to give it a try? There's no need to. He will lose for sure in the next battle. Qin Wentian calmly spoke. A smile of disdain flashed in Yi Kongfan's eyes. He was very clear of the strength of that golden-robed young man, how could he lose? His gaze drifted over to the platform, only to see a skinny young man clad in black robes appearing. This person exuded an extremely cold aura. Just a single glance at him would cause one to feel a chill down their spine despite the fact that his aura was only at the 4th level of Heavenly Dipper. This man is extremely dangerous, but with a cultivation base at the 4th level of Heavenly Dipper, he will lose for sure. An expert from the Violet Thunder sect spoke, causing the gazes of the spectators to turn over. On the platform, the sound of tsunami-like roars could be heard, causing Qin Wentian's eyes to flash with sharpness. Since these two were already on the platform, it was clear that they were famous and had already obtained the glorious battle record of 100 victories. I'm afraid you will be disappointed. Qin Wentian replied calmly. Very soon, a battle broke out between the two of them. The golden-bodied young man's entire body shone with golden brilliance, and the terrifying shadow of the indestructible golden body appeared behind him. When he attacked, his palm energy was monstrous, as if it could shatter the heavens and earth. It was extremely overbearing. The black-robed young man didn't clash head-on with him and only dodged ceaselessly. He moved between the real and the fake, and his footsteps were exquisite. Strands of bloody light flickered and suffused the battlefield. The golden-robed young man's attacks grew more and more violent, as if he wanted to destroy everything in his path and finish off his opponent. When he struck out with his palms, golden runic light transformed into a giant palm imprint that wanted to crush and annihilate everything in front of him. The violent storm of attacks blasted the black-robed young man into retreat, and he would even be struck by the powerful winds occasionally, causing him to spit out blood. Seems like your judgment isn't that good. This isn't a battle on the same level. The expert from the Violet Thunder sect stared at Qin Wentian as he mocked. This battle is indeed on a different level. It's about to end. Qin Wentian's voice was as calm as ever, causing the expert from the Violet Thunder sect to laugh coldly. What a stubborn mouth. Such an obvious result, yet you still want to twist words and force logic. I want to see if after this battle ends, you will be the one to slap your own face. Qin Wentian stared at his opponent as he spat out a word, idiot. You. No matter how strong the endurance of the expert from the Violet Thunder sect was, he couldn't endure Qin Wentian's repeated provocations. Not only that, this black-robed young man was already destined to lose, yet he still wanted to distort the truth. This made them want to give Qin Wentian a good thrashing. If it wasn't for the Holy Maiden being here, someone like you would have already died countless times over. The killing intent in that expert's eyes flickered as he spoke. I heard that the Violet Thunder sect is also one of the 9 great sections. Who would have thought that there would be so many idiots here? I'm ashamed to be in the same group as you all. Qin Wentian was as calm as ever as he calmly spoke. However, his words could drive people crazy. Even those from the Medicine Sovereign Valley and Battle Sword sect couldn't understand where Qin Wentian's confidence came from. It was obvious that the black-robed young man was at a disadvantage, yet he was so confident that he would win. I hope the lover of the Holy Maiden isn't someone who only knows how to use his tongue. Those from the Medicine Sovereign Valley sighed in their hearts. This Qin Wentian's eloquence was truly impressive, able to infuriate people with just a few words. But if he didn't have true strength, it would truly be too disappointing. After this battle ends, I will definitely give you a good smack on your face. An expert from the Violet Thunder sect couldn't help but to speak up when he saw Qin Wentian's unrestrained insults towards the Violet Thunder sect. He wanted to directly smack Qin Wentian's face. Who asked him to humiliate the Violet Thunder sect like this? Qin Wentian merely coldly glanced at him before turning his attention back to the battle platform. The attacks of the golden-robed young man grew increasingly violent and the battle was about to end. Those from the Violet Thunder sect had smiles on their faces while those from the Battle Sword sect were frowning. The disappointment in the hearts of those from the Medicine Sovereign Valley grew even more intense. Only Mo Qingqing believed in Qin Wentian's judgment. Not only because of her relationship with Qin Wentian, but also because she was familiar with the black-robed young man. Rumble. The violent sounds of attacks rocked the entire battle platform. The golden-robed young man was about to claim the life of the black-robed young man, but at this moment, no one noticed that the eyes of the black-robed young man flashed with an incomparably cold light. In the next instant, the golden-robed young man's attack froze in mid-air as his countenance turned ashen. Boom! The black-robed young man stomped down, slamming his palm into the golden-robed young man's body. In an instant, the golden-robed young man's body withered up, his eyes were wide open as he fell onto the battle platform, dying on the spot. A victor of 100 victories was actually killed by someone who jumped levels to kill him. This is... The hearts of the spectators were all filled with shock. Those from the Battle Sword sect all had gleams of sharpness on their faces as they stared at Qin Wentian in bewilderment. How could he be so confident that he could predict the outcome of the battle? Those from the Medicine Sovereign Valley also had gleams of sharpness on their faces. Seems like Qin Wentian's judgment wasn't what they had imagined. As for those from the Violet Thunder sect, their countenances all turned ashen. The ending of this battle caused them to feel extremely uncomfortable. Their faces were burning with a burning sensation. Thinking back to the exchange of words earlier, how ironic could it be? Ha, this face smacking is truly satisfying. Didn't you all know how to shout arrogantly? Why are you all mute now? Lu Yun laughed uproariously. The experts from the Violet Thunder sect all felt extremely uncomfortable. This was simply a great humiliation. Senior brother, why must you be so calculative with a bunch of idiots? Wouldn't that lower your status? At this moment, Qin Wentian didn't even glance at those from the Violet Thunder sect. He was persuading Lu Yun, but his words were extremely piercing to the ears of those from the Violet Thunder sect. Kong Fan, although they are our guests today, how dare they act so overbearingly, humiliating us with their words. If our Violet Thunder sect still doesn't have anything to say, wouldn't we become the laughingstock of others? A 5th-level Heavenly Dipper sovereign from the Violet Thunder sect coldly spoke. How laughable. Clearly, you guys were the ones who thought you were infallible and even said that you would slap my junior brother's face after this battle. In the end, you were the ones who were slapped, yet you still want to bite back at us? Today, I've truly experienced how powerful the Violet Thunder sect is. Lu Yun coldly snorted. Seems like Junior Brother's words were right. We are all from the 9 great sects, yet we are ashamed to be in the same group as these people. There's no meaning in squabbling. Although you guys are our guests today, since you guys dared to humiliate our sect, let's see who's stronger. Yi Kongfan's demeanor was extraordinary, wanting to toss aside everything with a single sentence, wanting to spar with the experts from the Battle Sword sect. But before that, go invite that person over first. This person is extraordinary. Yi Kongfan instructed his underling. Yes, Crown Prince. One of the guards flew towards the direction of the battle platform, wanting to invite the black-robed young man over. Although he didn't know what methods this black-robed young man used, the fact that he killed the golden-robed young man was clear to all. Yi Kongfan naturally wanted to recruit him as a subordinate and replace the golden-robed young man. The guard received the order and left, and not long after, the black-robed young man was invited over. Looking at the black-robed young man from such a close distance, Yi Kongfan discovered that the black-robed young man's eyes were filled with an unfathomable loftiness, exuding a dangerous coldness. It was as though there were no signs of life in his eyes, and they were extremely cold. If it was someone with a cultivation base lower than him, the look in his eyes would definitely cause them to shiver. Your strength isn't bad. Are you interested in joining the royal clan of my Yi country? I can recommend you to join my Violet Thunder sect. Given your strength, you should be able to pass the test. Yi Kongfan spoke to the black-robed young man. However, Yi Kongfan discovered that the black-robed young man wasn't even looking at him. That pair of deep eyes was staring at a seat above him. Michem. Yi Kongfan frowned, following the gaze of the black-robed young man, only to see that the person the black-robed young man was looking at was actually Qin Wentian. Why are you in Yi? The black-robed young man asked Qin Wentian, before glancing at Imo Qingcheng, feeling somewhat taken aback. I'm currently in the Battle Sword sect. This time around, I came to Yi because one of my senior apprentice sisters is the Princess of Yi. As for you, I didn't expect to meet you here. Qin Wentian was taken aback. There's no place for me in Grand Xia anymore. The black-robed young man calmly replied. However, Qin Wentian didn't know that during this period of time when he was away, the black-robed young man had caused a huge storm in Grand Xia, causing people to tremble in fear upon hearing his name. It was unknown how many experts were chasing after him. What are your plans in the future? Qin Wentian didn't probe further, he calmly asked. In the future? The black-robed young man contemplated for a moment before continuing, after Lu Min's death, I no longer have any worries in my heart. In the future, I will follow you. A strange expression appeared on Qin Wentian's face as sympathy appeared in his heart. When he thought back to that day outside the ancient kingdom of Grand Xia, he couldn't help but to sigh in his heart. He didn't expect that Mu Feng's only kin would meet such an end. The heavens were truly too cruel to Mu Feng. This black-robed young man was none other than the demon-level genius on the fate rankings of Grand Xia, Mu Feng, the disciple of the Poison Monarch. Back then, Di Feng disguised himself as Qin Wentian and caused the deaths of his entire family. In order to take revenge, Mu Feng almost poisoned Qin Wentian to death. After that, Qin Wentian didn't kill Mu Feng and even helped him find the culprit, Di Feng, to avenge him. At that time, Mu Feng knew that his life was saved by Qin Wentian. After that, he followed Di Tian, Yun Mengyi, and the rest into the ancient royal tomb of Grand Xia. Mu Feng was the inheritor of the Blood Emperor. Who would have thought that today, he would arrive in Yi? Chapter 530. As to why Qin Wentian was so confident in Mu Feng, it was naturally because of his proficiency in poison. Once, he had personally witnessed Mu Feng killing people without them noticing. Even he himself had been poisoned by Mu Feng before. Back then on the Heavenly Fate Rankings platform, Si Qiong's combat prowess clearly surpassed Mu Feng's. But in the end, although he won, he paid a heavy price and was almost killed by Mu Feng's poison. Si Cheong was someone who could cause others to tremble in fear. Even those whose combat prowess was much stronger than him would easily die in his hands. This was especially so under the circumstances where they didn't know what type of poison he was proficient in. Not only that, Mu Feng's personality had changed, becoming colder and colder. Now that he had obtained the inheritance of the Blood Emperor, he would only grow stronger. Hence, when Qin Wendian saw Mu Feng being suppressed in every aspect, he still felt that Mu Feng would definitely die in his hands. And the truth was indeed so. At the very end, Mu Feng managed to kill Si Cheong, allowing him to retreat unscathed. Upon hearing Mu Feng say that the girl who dragged him along all those years ago had also died, Qin Wendian could only sigh in his heart. He lightly nodded his head. "Fine, you can follow me from now on." Mu Feng didn't say anything more. He quietly walked to the back of Qin Wendian, like a shadow. If one didn't pay attention, it was as though he didn't exist at all. Yi Kongfan didn't expect such a situation to occur. He initially wanted to recruit Mu Feng, yet Mu Feng couldn't even be bothered with him, choosing to follow Qin Wendian instead. This was the very same Qin Wendian whom they had a grudge against earlier. Without a doubt, this made Yi Kongfan hate Qin Wendian even more. Those from the Battle Sword Sect and Medicine Sovereign Valley also felt their hearts trembling. They didn't expect that the delicate-looking young man beside Mo Qingqing would have such a side to him. His cultivation base was only at the peak of the 4th level of Heavenly Dipper, yet a character like Mu Feng didn't even consider Yi Kongfan's invitation, choosing to follow him instead. This caused them to re-evaluate Qin Wendian. The Holy Maiden of the Medicine Sovereign Valley, Qing'er, was deeply in love with him. Not only that, the Battle Sword Sect also knew that a similarly beautiful Qing'er existed beside Qin Wendian. Yi Lingshuang thought of how Qin Wendian comprehended 14 sword strikes in just 5 days. She couldn't help but silently speculate in her heart. Most probably, none of them truly understood Qin Wendian. What had he done in the desolate Grand Xia? This caused Qin Wendian to gradually become more and more mysterious in their hearts. After all, for a woman like Mo Qingqing, just based on her beauty, even if she didn't have the status of the Holy Maiden of the Medicine Sovereign Valley, she would still be the moon surrounded by stars. And for a terrifying character like Mu Feng, no matter what relationship he had with Qin Wendian, he was still willing to follow Qin Wendian. Not only that, the Battle Sword Sect sent out so many experts to the Xian King City, including Senior Lin Shuai and an important elder under Sword Sovereign Ling Tian, yet they only brought back 2 people. One was Qing'er, and the other was Qin Wendian. Could there be more than meets the eye? Back then, how heavily injured was Mo Qingqing? Who was it that sent her to the Medicine Sovereign Valley? Who was it that personally treated her? Even the Medicine Sovereign had to expend a great deal of energy in order to treat her. Who had the face to do so? After all, when Mo Qingqing was heavily injured, it was impossible to tell her talent. One could only say that the person who sent her to the Medicine Sovereign Valley was extraordinary. Yi Lingshuang wasn't a fool. The more she thought about it, the more shocked she felt. She cast a deep glance at Qin Wendian beside her. There were many people in the Battle Sword Sect who weren't ordinary. Naturally, they would also think that this junior brother of theirs was different from the rest. However, those from the Violet Thunder Sect wouldn't think so much. Right now, they only felt that they had lost all face. This was especially so when they had the absolute advantage today, yet they were in such a predicament. This was something they couldn't accept. Yi Kongfan's eyes flickered with coldness. Beside him, a figure stood up. Momentarily, the gazes of Qin Wendian and the others all turned to him. Everyone! A loud shout rang out. This person's voice was like thunder, shaking the entire battlefield. Momentarily, countless gazes turned over, staring at this young man. Lei Yan, at the 5th level of Heavenly Dipper. His offense and defense are balanced, and he's extremely strong. If he challenges you, you must definitely not accept. Yi Lingshuang transmitted her voice to Qin Wendian, her words causing Qin Wendian's countenance to change slightly. Seems like this senior apprentice sister of his had the intention to pull the distance between them closer. Although he understood that Yiling Shuang had a request, he didn't mind it. After all, no matter who it was, no one would be able to remain unmoved when their father was heavily injured. I'm Lei Yan from the Violet Thunder sect. Although I, Lei Yan, am from the Violet Thunder sect, upon seeing so many heroes appearing in the Yi Country battle arena, I, Lei Yan, would like to add to the fun. I'm prepared to invite an expert from the Battle Sword sect to spar with me. Lei Yan spoke in a loud voice. Instantly, the entire battlefield erupted into an uproar as the sounds of mountains and seas filled the air, completely drowning the entire battlefield. The competition between the 9 great sects had always been intense, but it wasn't so easy to spectate the battles between them. In the royal sacred region, only the sacred battle platform could be seen, if not, it would have to depend on luck. Now that Lei Yan had issued a challenge to an expert from the Battle Sword sect, it naturally caused the hearts of the crowd to be filled with excitement. It was rumored that the combat prowess of those from the Battle Sword sect was the strongest among the 9 great sections. Today, an expert from the Violet Thunder sect had issued a challenge to an expert from the Battle Sword sect. Those from the Battle Sword sect frowned as a cold light flickered in their eyes. An expert from the Violet Thunder sect directly issued a challenge in public, forcing them to accept it. If they didn't, wouldn't they be ridiculed by others? Their Battle Sword sect actually didn't even dare to accept the challenge. Brother Qin, I, Lei Yan, have already experienced your eloquence. But I wonder if your combat prowess is as good as your mouth. Lei Yan turned his head and stared at Qin Wentian. As expected, Qin Wentian wanted to challenge him because the person who caused the Violet Thunder sect to lose face today was none other than Qin Wentian, the young man beside the Holy Maiden. The crowd grew increasingly excited when they saw Qin Wentian. This young man seemed to have an extraordinary relationship with the Holy Maiden of the Medicine Sovereign Valley and was also a disciple of the Battle Sword sect. How could they not be filled with anticipation? My junior apprentice brother's cultivation base is at the 4th level of Heavenly Dipper while you are at the 5th level. Aren't you ashamed of challenging me? Why don't you challenge me instead? Lu Yun had a smile that was not a smile on his face as he mocked Lei Yan. I, Lei, also know that my words are somewhat inappropriate. It's just that Brother Qin's mouth is simply too venomous. I, Lei, have no choice but to seek guidance from him. As for you, there's no rush, there will naturally be someone from my Violet Thunder sect who will challenge you. Lei Yan's words caused the crowd to be even more excited. Seems like there wouldn't be just a single battle today. Qin Wentian inclined his head and stared at Lei Yan as he laughed in disdain, the loser shall die. How about it? As the sound of his voice faded, many in the crowd drew in a breath of cold air. How arrogant! The loser shall die. Lei Yan provoked him and he actually used the simplest of words to reply. Such boldness caused the crowd to sigh in admiration. As expected of someone from the Battle Sword sect, the sect with the strongest individual combat prowess. Lei Yan's heart also trembled because of Qin Wentian's words. He stared at Qin Wentian's eyes only to see that they were deep and clear. That disdainful smile on his face was filled with self-confidence, as though as long as he dared to nod his head, Qin Wentian would be able to take his life. Boom! A towering might of lightning permeated the air. Lei Yan's silhouette flickered as he stepped forward, floating in the airspace above the 100 Victory Battle platform. He pointed his finger at Qin Wentian, if you don't borrow any divine weapons or treasures, the loser shall die. The reason why he said that was because he was worried that Qin Wentian would play a trick on him. If Qin Wentian had a divine weapon, he would be able to instantly end his life. If he didn't borrow any divine weapons or treasures, he didn't believe that Qin Wentian would be able to defeat him, Lei Yan. If you really have the guts to accept my challenge, scram the hell out here. Lei Yan violently spoke, exuding an unexcelled aura. A lightning rock dragon could be seen coiling around his body, exuding a terrifying aura. Junior brother, his attacks are very strong, Lu Yun reminded when he saw Qin Wentian standing up. Qin Wentian nodded his head lightly. With a flash of light, a gigantic axe appeared in his hands as he faintly asked, "This is an ordinary weapon, should I be able to use it?" Those from the Violet Thunder sect sensed that this was indeed an ordinary weapon, hence they didn't say anything. His silhouette flickered as Qin Wendian stepped out, wielding a gigantic axe in his hands. Every step he took caused Lei Yan to feel a faint pressure bearing down on him. Gravity. Lei Yan's heart trembled. Instantly, his mandate of gravity bore down on Qin Wendian. However, Qin Wendian was already used to the extreme gravity back in the Gravity Mountain. His opponent's mandate of gravity had no way to affect him. At this moment, countless gazes were fixed on the two of them in the air. Those from the Medicine Sovereign Valley also placed great importance on this battle. They wanted to see how strong the person who had captured the heart of the Holy Maiden was exactly. Qin Wendian stepped out as a formless pressure gushed forth. Lei Yan's body was clad in a layer of stone armor that crackled with lightning. With such a defense, even if Lei Yan managed to land a strike, he wouldn't be able to break through it in a short period of time. The Battle Sword sect claims to have the strongest combat prowess. How laughable. Just a single battle and you're already so arrogant. Today, I shall let everyone see how laughable it is to claim to be the strongest in terms of individual combat prowess. Lei Yan dashed out as he roared in rage. Instantly, a lightning dragon materialized in the air, transforming into a resplendent dragonstone sword that pierced through the air, aiming for Qin Wendian. What a powerful attack! The eyes of the crowd flickered. Those from the Violet Thunder sect had cold smiles on their faces. This was Lei Yan's dragonstone sword technique, its destructive power was extremely terrifying. Each and every one of his swords were indestructible and extremely hard to destroy. Qin Wendian lifted his hands as the will of his mandate gushed forth. From the center of his brows, a cold light shot out, penetrating into Lei Yan's sea of consciousness as he slashed out with his great axe. This axe strike seemed extremely ordinary, as though he was casually chopping down a tree. But at the instant the axe descended, everything in its path was destroyed. That indestructible dragonstone sword was directly cleaved into two halves. At the same time, Lei Yan's axe continued to slash forward as a beam of axe light flashed past. A crisp cracking sound rang out as Qin Wendian retracted his axe. The crowd turned their gazes onto Lei Yan only to see his body trembling as a line of blood appeared on his forehead. His body fell from the air. That axe strike was akin to chopping down a tree, directly taking Lei Yan's life. Chapter 531. Lei Yan's body slumped onto the ground, no longer breathing. Fresh blood dyed the entire arena red. A single axe strike, it was just an ordinary axe strike, yet it caused the hearts of those who saw it to tremble. This axe strike didn't merely chop down a tree, but instead, it severed the life of a young expert from the Violet Thunder sect. Qin Wendian's current strength was simply too overwhelming. After experiencing the tempering of the Gravity Mountain, his fleshly body was nearing perfection. Every single swing of his axe was able to utilize the strength of his entire body, and in addition to the superiority of his astral energy compared to others, as well as his attainments in the aspect of strength, although it seemed like a simple axe strike, only those who fought against him would know how much strength was contained within. The hearts of those from the Violet Thunder sect trembled as they stared at the corpse on the arena. Their countenances could no longer be described with just the word ashen. Not long ago, Lei Yan declared war in front of everyone, arrogantly declaring that he wanted to let everyone see that Qin Wendian was only a braggart. He wanted everyone to see that the Battle Sword sect's individual combat prowess was nothing but a joke. These words were still ringing in their ears, but when the axe cleaved down, how could it be described as a slap in the face? If this was a slap in the faces of those from the Violet Thunder sect were all slapped swollen. The experts from the Battle Sword sect all started, but they soon understood. Senior brother Lin Shuai and the elders personally went to welcome this young man, he would naturally be extraordinary. Not long ago, they already knew that this junior brother of theirs wasn't an ordinary character. But even so, that axe strike from Qin Wendian still gave them quite a shock. Although they believed that Qin Wendian would win, they didn't expect him to win in such an arrogant manner. With a single swing of his axe, he killed Lei Yan. Those from the Medicine Sovereign Valley couldn't help but be shocked as their eyes gleamed with sharpness. Seems like the young man the Holy Maiden liked was truly extraordinary. Sadly, his cultivation base was too low. Their Holy Maiden was someone who could concoct fifth-ranked medicinal pills and was doted on by the Medicine Sovereign. As for the spectators of Yi, they only had a single thought in their hearts. The Battle Sword sect claimed to have the strongest individual combat prowess, and it wasn't just a lie. They were truly that monstrous. No wonder there were rumors saying that those who entered the Battle Sword sect would have a chance to join the Royal Sacred Sect. After tempering themselves in the Battle Sword sect for a few years, they would definitely be able to join the Royal Sacred Sect. But to Qin Wendian, killing Lei Yan was nothing more than an ordinary matter. Throughout these years, how many times had he been looked down upon? How many demon-level characters had died in his hands? Even he himself couldn't remember clearly. Just a mere Lei Yan, Qin Wendian didn't really place him in his heart. If it wasn't for Lei Yan specifically provoking him, he wouldn't have acted at all. But now that he was a disciple of the Battle Sword sect, he couldn't allow the reputation of the Battle Sword sect to be tarnished in his hands. Turning his gaze over, Qin Wendian stared in the direction of those from the Violet Thunder sect as he calmly spoke. Those from the Violet Thunder sect, your mouth is indeed much more powerful than your strength. As the sound of his voice faded, it was no different from pouring salt on the wounds of the Violet Thunder sect. Thinking about it, Lei Yan's heroic words before the battle, while Qin Wendian didn't say anything at all. He only said a single sentence, the loser shall die. Now that they thought back to the words spoken by Qin Wendian, how arrogant and confident were they? My cultivation base is at the 4th level of Heavenly Dipper. Since those from the Violet Thunder sect love challenges so much, anyone below the 6th level of Heavenly Dipper is welcome to challenge me, including those at the 6th level of Heavenly Dipper. Qin Wendian faintly spoke. This time around, as the sound of his voice faded, another wave of commotion arose in the hearts of the spectators. Junior brother Qin has gone mad. Yi Lingshuang's countenance drastically changed. Although Qin Wendian's combat prowess was extremely powerful, and she had personally witnessed the might of that axe strike, the Violet Thunder sect was still one of the 9 great sects after all. Among Yi Kongfan's group, there were a few extremely talented geniuses whose cultivation bases were at the 6th level of Heavenly Dipper. They were already the cream of the crop in their respective cultivation levels, possessing terrifying combat prowess. Yet Qin Wendian actually dared to jump 2 levels to challenge them. From Yi Lingshuang's point of view, Qin Wendian's decision was simply too audacious. How impudent! The countenances of those from the Violet Thunder sect turned ashen. They were all infuriated by Qin Wendian's provocation. A cold light flickered in Yi Kongfan's eyes as he coldly spoke. I respect Brother Qin's combat prowess, but as fellow members of the 9 great sects, my junior brother Lei Yan was a guest of your Battle Sword sect. Even if your combat prowess was superior to his, you didn't show any mercy and directly killed him. Aren't you a little too vicious? If I, Yi Kongfan, don't give an explanation to my sect, I'm afraid I won't be able to escape punishment. How ridiculous! The members of your Violet Thunder sect are so rude and overbearing, exuding a towering killing intent. Lei Yan's arrogance is still fresh in my mind. Yi Kongfan, you are truly sinister. Lu Yun naturally wouldn't give face to Yi Kongfan. He directly exposed Yi Kongfan's words. Why don't I say the following words on your behalf? Although the disciples of my Violet Thunder sect are all at the 6th level of Heavenly Dipper, in order to avenge the death of my junior brother Lei Yan, my Violet Thunder sect is willing to accept this name. Yi Kongfan's countenance changed. This was indeed what he wanted to say, but he didn't expect Lu Yun from the Battle Sword sect to speak first. Earlier when Qin Wendian killed Lei Yan with a single axe strike, Yi Kongfan already knew that it was impossible for a 5th-level Heavenly Dipper sovereign to defeat or kill Qin Wendian. They hadn't even clearly seen how strong Qin Wendian was. Only a 6th-level Heavenly Dipper sovereign would be able to kill him. But an instant later, Yi Kongfan's countenance returned to normal as he smiled. That's right. Even if we lost some face, it doesn't matter. No matter what, we have to avenge this battle. If you guys want revenge, you can continue to challenge the experts of my Violet Thunder sect. After speaking, Yi Kongfan glanced at the person beside him as he spoke in a light voice. Junior brother Tan, I'm afraid we need you to fight for our sect. Yi Kongfan, aren't your actions a little too despicable? Yi Lingshuang's countenance changed. She stared at Yi Kongfan as she continued. Tan Feng from the Violet Thunder sect, his cultivation base is at the 6th level of Heavenly Dipper, and he also possesses the Flame Blood Mandate. Infusing his Mandate of Lightning, Mandate of Fire, Mandate of Blood, and Mandate of Metal, his attacks are so powerful that even 7th level Heavenly Dipper sovereigns wouldn't be able to withstand it. Yet you want him to deal with a 4th level Heavenly Dipper sovereign like me? Don't you feel ashamed? Qin Wentian understood that although Yi Lingshuang's words were filled with anger, it was also a warning to Qin Wentian. She could sense Tan Feng's strength as well as the mandates he was proficient in. If Qin Wentian felt pressured, even if he rejected the battle, nobody would say anything. After all, the cultivation bases of the two of them weren't on the same level. If it wasn't for his arrogant words, I wouldn't have acted in such a manner. Yi Kongfan continued, the Battle Sword sect and the Violet Thunder sect are both part of the 9 great sections. My junior brother Lei Yan from the Violet Thunder sect died on the platform, and we have no complaints at all. But since you guys from the Battle Sword sect want to retract your words so easily, can I help Lei Yan to retract his words and punish him for killing my junior brother? Naturally, since he's a guest, if he's willing to kneel in front of my junior brother Lei Yan's corpse and apologize, Yi Kongfan, am willing to take responsibility for this matter. Yi Kongfan's voice was as calm as ever. His words were clearly sophistry, yet there was no way to refute it. After all, Qin Wentian was the one who spoke arrogantly first. Right now, Qin Wentian was stuck between a rock and a hard place. The hearts of the spectators mused. Hypocrite. Qin Wentian stared at Yi Kongfan. This person made use of his junior brother to act. Lei Yan had died, yet he didn't feel any sorrow. If not, how could he be so calm? Most probably, in Yi Kongfan's eyes, Lei Yan was nothing more than a chess piece. And now, his chess piece was changed to Tan Feng, a chess piece used to kill Qin Wentian. How could Qin Wentian not understand Yi Kongfan's feelings for Mo Qingcheng? Before this, both of them didn't shed all pretense of cordiality, and Yi Kongfan was doing his best to conceal it. Now, Yi Kongfan was already itching to kill Qin Wentian. He knew that it was impossible for Qin Wentian to kneel to Lei Yan, he had to experience this battle no matter what. And from Yi Lingshuang's words, it was obvious that Tan Feng's combat prowess was extremely high, and he even had the flame blood. If you want to fight, just scram the hell out. The blood in Qin Wentian's body surged. The Violet Thunder sect was one of the 9 great sects, and the geniuses of the Violet Thunder sect were naturally extremely powerful. Although he was confident in himself, he didn't dare to be blindly arrogant. Hence, he was already prepared to activate the power of his bloodline. If Tan Feng was truly strong enough, he would unleash the full power of his primordial demonic bloodline to kill him. He actually accepted the challenge. The hearts of the spectators were filled with shock. That was a 6th level Heavenly Dipper sovereign from the Violet Thunder sect, and it was none other than Tan Feng. Those from the Battle Sword sect had all heard of Tan Feng's name before. Tan Feng stood up. His eyes were exceptionally cold, and when one stared at him, one could sense a dangerous aura emanating from him. With a flicker of his silhouette, Tan Feng moved like a specter towards Qin Wentian. His speed was exceedingly fast, and he didn't say a single word. A violent and dangerous surge of bloodline power gushed forth from his body, causing the air around him to emit a sizzling sound. His eyes were pitch black and crimson, as though there were black-colored flames burning within them, causing the eyes of others to feel a piercing pain. Both of their mandates are at the transformation boundary. Qin Wentian could sense the strength of Tan Feng's mandates from his eyes. Tan Feng's mandates were definitely not inferior to his own. Tan Feng continued advancing soundlessly. Lifting his palms, the surrounding space was filled with a terrifying sense of danger. His palms blasted out soundlessly, blasting towards Qin Wendian with a pitch-black palm imprint imprinted with the color of lava. Qin Wendian slashed out with his axe, slamming into the palm imprint. An instant later, a thunderous boom rang out as the destructive shockwaves danced wildly in the air. That palm imprint abruptly expanded in size, shrouded in a blood-red glow as lightning crackled around it. Qin Wendian lifted his axe once again as his blood surged. Immense strength gathered in his arms as he abruptly slashed out. The palm imprint was cleaved apart, yet the destructive might of the attack didn't diminish in the slightest as it continued on its path towards Qin Wendian. Bang! With stellar transposition, Qin Wendian's silhouette vanished from sight as he reappeared in the air. That palm imprint blasted out towards the horizons. Tan Feng was only taken aback by Qin Wendian's instantaneous movement. He instantly soared up into the air and with a grab of his palm, a towering screen of light appeared in the air. The screen was clearly black in color, yet it was as though it contained a blood-red glow that enveloped the entire sky. The Great Destruction Palm Imprint. Senior Tan Feng is getting stronger and stronger. The experts from the Violet Thunder sect all had their eyes gleaming with sharpness. They were very clear of Tan Feng's strength. Even ordinary 7th-level Heavenly Dipper sovereigns would die in his hands, let alone a 4th-level Heavenly Dipper sovereign like Qin Wendian. Qin Wendian roared as an astral nova appeared in the air. It was none other than his astral soul, the Heavenly Hammer. Instantly, a terrifying light shone from it. With the Heavenly Hammer in his hands, he actually stepped towards the center of the Great Destruction Palm Imprint. Brandishing the Heavenly Hammer, he blasted out with all his strength. Bang! The towering waves of destructive energy gushed forth in a frenzy. As the astral nova smashed down, the Great Destruction Palm Imprint was actually still there. From this, one could see how tyrannical this technique was. Seeing that the destructive energy was about to engulf him, Qin Wendian executed stellar transposition once more, and at the instant the Great Destruction Palm Imprint was destroyed, Qin Wendian stood at an even higher altitude. As expected, I mustn't underestimate the geniuses of the various great sections. The innate techniques and techniques of the Violet Thunder sect must be extremely powerful as well. Just the destructive power of that palm imprint alone is extremely terrifying. Qin Wendian sighed in his heart. Tan Feng should be one of the more powerful characters in the Violet Thunder sect. Yi Kongfan's eyes flashed with a cold smile. He was very clear of Tan Feng's strength. If the two of them were suppressed to the same level, he wouldn't be much stronger than Tan Feng. Tan Feng's usage of the will of mandates was extremely terrifying, and he could infuse them into innate techniques to unleash an overwhelming might. You're tuning in to the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.